Alrighty. So, what if we learned what was going to happen in the future of World of Warcraft right now? Alright, here we go.
What's up, everybody? Here at the end of The War Within, the first dramatic chapter of the World Soul Saga, we've seen the adventure take us into the depths of the world, and even to worlds cast out into the great dark beyond. We've seen our villain Xal'atath running around and amassing untold power. We've seen her siphon the energies of Dalaran, and even those of the black blood beneath Azj-Kahet. And recently, Xal'atath assumed the power of the last Void Lord, Dimensius. So the question remains,
He was kind of a little
what
gub.
will she do with all that power? And what are her intentions relative to our precious World Soul?
Wait, did she take his
So
power?
now, as midnight descends,
I thought we just
and the
smoked that guy.
second, darker chapter of our trilogy begins, Xal'atath has returned to Azeroth, leading an army known as the Devouring Host, intent on snuffing out the light of the Sunwell and plunging the world into darkness. You, the heroes of Azeroth, will be set on a collision course with Xal'atath to save not only Azeroth itself, but everything that is.
Hi everyone. As we kick off our Midnight Alpha, we'd like to give you all a deep dive into what's in store. We want to recap everything we've shared so far, along with some brand new details. Today we're going to talk about the story of Midnight, as well as the zones, dungeons, delves, and raids that await if you want to save our world from Xal'atath. We're also going to talk about some big new features coming in Midnight, like Prey and the Devourer Demon Hunter specialization. And of course, let's not forget housing. Thank you so much for joining us today. And as always, thank you for being a part of this amazing community, for choosing to spend your time in Azeroth and with each other. Now, without further ado,
Oh, yay.
let's see what's in store for our home away from home. After all, it's nearly midnight. And there you have it. Thank you so much on behalf of the entire World of Warcraft team for joining us for this overview of Midnight. And if after what you just saw, you can't wait to get your hands on housing, don't worry, because it's coming your way if you have Midnight in early December of this year.
Yo.
Thank you again, and we'll see you in Azeroth.
Yo, what? Alright, wait. The clock still says 9:29. Give me a second. Lore walking updates. Okay, it's 9:30. All right. So, we were able to play the alpha yesterday. It's pretty fucking cool. There's a million changes. Also, we are going to be able to play the alpha today at 10:30, 1 hour from now, after this dev Q&A happens. Okay? So, we're going to be logging on the alpha, showing you the changes. There's an infinite amount of changes. Some I can highlight. Number one, we're going to go over everything, and there is so much, but just like in brief, they made a bunch of really cool class changes. Defensives got pruned across the entire board. Healers were simplified, which people have been asking for years. They changed some shit with like AUG, like Ebonmite affects every DPS player now instead of people you have to individually choose, which removes the bar between like great players and the average AUG player. It's going to be infinitely easier to tune and show up on logs. Obviously, all of the like Apex talents are in. The UI stuff is in. A lot of the new add-on stuff is in. It's very, very cool. So we're gonna be doing that in like an hour or so. But until then, we're gonna watch this dev Q&A. So yeah, the season 1 of Dragonflight, the rotation is 4 Midnight Dungeons, which I won't name because it won't mean anything to you. And then it is Algathar Academy, W. Seat of the Triumvirate. Okay, now, some of you guys are going to just see that name and you're going to instantly freak out. But let me just tell you, Seat was actually a very good dungeon. It had 2 issues. Number 1, it was overtuned when it came out. They can easily fix that. Dungeon philosophy is totally different now. But number 2, the thing that was wrong with Seat is that it was made so late into the expansion, and they never changed the dungeon pool in Legion. So you were just Legion was the last time they made dungeons late into the season, but they never rotated dungeons. It's the last time it happened. So people were used to these dungeons for like a year and a half, and then they just came out with a new one. And while it was overtuned, it was also the one key that you could potentially get that you didn't know by heart. So it was harder by default because you just haven't had to learn it for a year. So it was just put in a position to fail. Seat was actually a cool dungeon. My hot take is that I think this will be one of people's favorite dungeons this season. But I say that knowing basically nothing. So W me. Okay, Skyreach. I think aesthetically a really cool dungeon, would need some changes to Mythic Plus to be cool. And Pit of Saron I actually think is cool. The way that Pit of Saron is laid out is like, I think mob count will be really fun, and some of the pulls are pretty cool. So, and obviously they're going to have to super modernize it. I think it's really hard to determine like whether a dungeon's going to be good or not based on what it was, especially if it's from like Kata or before that, because like the game has changed so much that like they're just going to redo the whole thing. Like every boss is going to be so different. Max, why are Apex talents already in the alpha? Okay, so all they've posted is that so far. There's just a decent amount of changes to every class, but number one is if you guys are just looking at all of your defensives right now in the game, you're thinking of what defensives you have available. Just think at least one of them is gone. I know for mages, multiple are gone. Like off the top of my head, let me see if I can find it. I think mages are losing mirror image DR and the DR from Greater Invis. Like monks are losing diffuse, but now like magic reversal is part of Fort Brew. In a way, like Netherwalk is part of Blur. Now you guys are going to hear this as like a singular class, and you're going to hear, oh, well, I've lost my defensive and I've needed it. You're thinking you need it because of the content that you've done. Like in your head, you're like, what? How would it be if I tried to do the content I'm doing now, but I just had one less defensive? It would feel bad. You have to understand it's happening across the entire game to literally every class, some more than others, which is the way it should be. But that's because the content you've done has been designed for you having that many defensives. In fact, there's some really good videos about this, but there's been a lot of issues over the last few years where healing looks like shit because everything is so spiky, because it's the only way they can challenge you because there's so many defensives in the game and healers have so many cooldowns. So they simplified healers and they reduced defensives. So you don't know how many defensives you're going to need because clearly they can design content differently without you having those defensives. I'm a huge fan of this. The Potty C, everyone I know has been saying they need to do this for years. It's gotten way out of hand, especially since the Dragonflight talent trees, where like the way you intake damage in this game is just so bad now. But yeah, it's a massive W. I'm really interested to see how it plays out. I'm sure it's going to be a little rocky. Like, it's going to be the first time in a while they're designing damage intake for the amount of defensives we have, and it's going to be so different. Not to mention the healing part of it, so... Yeah, people already have... Oh, talent trees are already refreshed on Wowhead. All right, W. That'll give us some stuff to do. But we also... The devs are doing a Q&A, and we can't log on alpha till 10:30 anyway. If the Q&A questions are stuff we can ignore, we might mute it and then go back. But there's like a ton of information to cover. Okay, but you can read it. So... What used to be here, guys? Weapons of Order. Chi costs are reduced by 1 and Black Oak Kick reduces the cooldown effectively for 1 second. Activating Weapons of Order resets the remaining cooldown of Rising Sun Kick and grants 2 Chi. Spiritual Focus. What used to say the cooldown of Storm, Earth, and Fire is reduced by 20 seconds. Now the cooldowns of Weapons of Order. So if you guys are Windwalker players, they... I still saw it in the cooldown manager, but I think they juiced Storm, Earth, and Fire. I think clones might be dead. They changed how stagger works. Guys, there's actually an infinite amount of information to get to. We have to pace ourselves. Let's watch this Q&A real quick.
The WoW creator Polka TV
shit.
said, given the upcoming removal of many boss mod tools, how do you plan to preserve the intended difficulty of encounters once these tools are no longer available?
So yeah, this is a great question. For some extra context, I think folks are going to see in the next day or two, as some of the media interviews we've done in the last day go out, that we are rolling out changes to the add-on API with the launch of Midnight. And so that is going to remove the ability for add-ons to read in real time combat state and combat information specifically. And one of the big reasons why we're doing this with the launch of a new expansion is so that we can really build all of our combat, our encounters around that expectation, around this new ecosystem. As we've been discussing over the course of the year, really the main goal with this shift is to create a level playing field where external tools are no longer felt to be required in order to engage in the contents, at a competitive level. And also to shift some of the things that we are testing when it comes to difficulty, maybe away from Twitch reactions and how quickly you can run to the circle or diamond marker that your add-on told you to run to, and rather to more of the collaborative coordination that have traditionally marked cooperative PvE in WoW. But the goal is to keep difficulty largely the same. In terms of how many pulls it takes to down a boss for your guild, whether you are aiming for ahead of the curve and defeating Heroic, or whether you're pushing into Mythic or whatever else, overall it should take you about the same amount of time to accomplish what you're used to accomplishing.
Ideally,
which is
yeah.
that difficulty may come in slightly different places. Without add-ons to solve mechanics for you in real time, it may well be the case that we just need to give you a couple more seconds to get into place, or that there should be one fewer ad to interrupt, or what have you. We are going to be rolling out, we're actually going to be launching alpha with a raid boss available for testing early on.
This
we have
is so you can see the DPM.
native improvements to the UI, like boss timers, boss alerts, so you can see a timeline of upcoming boss abilities, nameplate improvements, cooldown manager improvements, and more, to, again, kind of create a unified experience that's baked into the UI. But the goal at the end of the day is for difficulty to remain where it was, and we will be making tuning changes in alpha and beta, as well as, of course, once these encounters are live, to make sure that things are landing in the right place and players still feel well equipped to overcome the challenges in front of them.
Following that, Sped Bros on Reddit asked, what is your plan for upkeep and development of these now built-in add-ons?
Okay, fuck. I have so much to say over what they just said.
The functionality that we're pulling into the base UI is something that, as always, we're going to be evolving in response to player feedback. Again, part of why we're very excited to get people having a look at these right at the start of alpha is so that we have the entirety of the alpha and beta cycle to iterate on them before midnight launches. And then, of course, as always, even after the game is live, we're going to continue to add functionality.
Pause, bro, you have a new feature?
Player requests and the feedback.
It's live, though. I'd rather keep it that way.
Ossicrond on the WoW forums.
I'll wait till a boring question.
Sculpting your UI over the years is almost like
another
working
good
on a
one.
classic car.
Fucking blow me up.
Fine-tuning with different fonts, color palettes, and even different types of glow alerts. What is the depth of the available customization, and are there plans to expand it in the future?
So there's a couple of facets to this question. First off, couldn't agree more that I think UI customization and using add-ons to tailor the aesthetic of a UI, how information is presented and where it's presented, I think are one of the hallmarks of the WoW experience and really one of the strengths of the game for going on 21 years now. There are no plans to eliminate or remove that. The approach we've taken in changing the way the add-on API works really is just focused on access to that real-time information. There'll be details coming out very soon from our UI engineering team on exactly how this works. But whereas in the past, when we have restricted aspects of what add-ons can do, we tend to just kind of wall off sections of our UI and say add-ons can't touch this at all. But when it comes to things like nameplates or unit frames and the like, that would have been an unacceptable approach here because that aesthetic customization is so essential. So there's a brand new system that's been created where essentially pieces of information about what's going on in combat are put in the black box. And add-ons can paint that box pink or yellow or green or make it bigger or smaller, but what they can't do is know exactly what's inside the box and use that to drive logic. In addition to that, the new UI functionality that we're adding,
yeah, but can you press a macro
nameplates or whatever,
to give it that logic?
Customizations in terms of size, shape, location, aesthetic, all of the edit mode functionality and more. But we have no intent of pulling back in any way from the aesthetic customization that add-ons have always offered.
Cutting to the chase, Felfer on the WoW forums asked, does this mean that existing add-ons like Deadly Boss Mods, Plater, or Details are going to break?
They will change significantly. I think certainly, day one, if you're logging into alpha and you try to enable them, I do not believe they will work due to changes in the API, but that's standard for any new expansion release. We are inviting the authors of a vast range of add-ons into our first week of alpha, so that's going to be coming up in just the next few days, to get their hands on these changes, to give us feedback about how we can better support their ongoing development. But yes, when it comes to
Max and
the
Shock.
specific
I knew about
ability
this.
to read and process combat information and use that to drive logic, that is going to be changing, and that will affect those add-ons.
Okay, give me one more. This comes from Herrix on the WoW forums. Herrix said, what are the plans regarding improvements to the default raid frames? In the effort to reduce the need for add-ons, raid frames are a major pain point for healers, where the default Blizzard raid frames are basically unusable without at least some external modification.
So yeah, we also have improvements coming to raid frames, definitely with healers in mind. If you're, let's say, a Resto Druid who wants to be able to see all of your HOTS on a target, that's something that we agree is very important and needs to be baked into the default functionality. Same with encounter designers calling out major buffs and debuffs and things that you need to know in an encounter, whether you're a healer or just.
I mean, we have players in our guild who heal
on the state of the encounter
and play with
way.
default raid frames.
And of course,
but they can definitely be
as mentioned
improved.
Earlier, add-ons will still be able to customize the look and the feel and the size and the overall presentation of raid frames.
Oh, okay.
It just won't be certain functionality that is driving logic based on whether you happen to have a certain debuff or not. But all the rest should still be available.
I feel like I need to wait for this to be over to talk about the add-on stuff. It's just too. I can't be interrupted. I need a constant train of thought.
Chapter is focused on.
It's pretty fucking huge,
Blood
though.
Elves and the Blood Elves struggle.
We also don't know everything. Like he's saying, like, okay, stuff that they're gonna have to change because they can't work on anything that draws logic, but you can still customize the color and look of everything. Like, that sounds good, but like, I'm not smart enough to know exactly what that means it can and can't do, right? Like, I think in a perfect world, if most people still had their UI to be colored and looked exactly the way that it is, but they just removed the weak ores that we all hate, that'd be great. I think clearly there's going to be some crossover there, right? Where, like, some stuff isn't going to be doable, but also the stuff that I've seen on the alpha, like, at least the cooldown manager is, like, actually so much fucking better. So that is going to reduce the need for a lot of that stuff. But then, like, how, like, is DBM and Bigwig still going to be an option even if you have an in-game thing? Like, how much of that is working on logic versus working off just literally timers? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, some people are going to lose their jobs for sure, like, eventually. Like, if you end up not being able to use weak ores. But, like, I don't know. People are really, really used to, like, audio cues and stuff. Is it not going to be possible to make audio cues when anything happens? Are those going to be in the black box? I don't know. Who is this going to affect, right? I've spoke about this a lot. Add-ons in this game are add-ons and UI help and text-to-speech. All that stuff are crutches, things that help you play the game better. Well, crutches are more helpful to you the less skilled you are. So my main concern with removing add-ons in a lot of ways is, let's just say you're just hitting this shit full natty. That's going to affect the average cutting edge guild significantly more than the top players, because you're better at the game, so you need less help on stuff like that. You can afford to give more effort to other things that you have previously been solving with a little robot in your ear telling you when to press your cooldowns. I'm worried how it affects, and then, like, obviously they're gonna have to design the content around that. They say they want to have the same pulls on mute class talk. Oh shit!
New range DPS spec for them is our focus.
W
right
call
now.
by chat right there.
But I think we've seen, whether it's this or whether it's augmentation, there is excitement around the idea of established classes getting new specs, and so that is something I think we are likely to explore as we look to the future.
Zerotics on Reddit
could get more
throughout
extra
the
specs
War
added.
Within, some classes and specs received visual updates, and as a monk player, the update to Vivify was very appreciated. Are there any other classes or specs that can be revealed to be getting updated visuals in Midnight?
Yeah, there's a couple really cool Apex talents. So Apex talents are the new talents you'll be able to learn at the bottom of your spec tree, and a lot of these have some fantastic visuals. Ones that jump out to me are the augmentation, where you summon a bronze dragon version of yourself from the future to fight alongside you for a little bit. The Frost Mage one as well. You summon a Hand of Frost that chases down your target and attack them. And so these are some of the new abilities that are going to get some new custom visuals. As far as, like, looking back at older visuals, as was the case with Vivify, this is something that we tend to do as we continue to build smaller patches. Most of our efforts for Midnight was building all the new stuff, but then as we continue building out the game, we look to the future. This is where we look back at, as we did with Vivify, find abilities where we can raise the floor and say, like, okay, this one has aged not as
Oh my god, I have
gracefully as the
so
rest
many
of our
questions
visuals,
in
and we
chat
can
I
bring it
want
up
to
par with the
respond
rest.
to. And then I'm, like, in the middle, I'm in a fucking heater, and then you guys are like, oh, they asked a new question, you better tune in. It's like,
Voidy Tentacle. That
it's not
slams
worth
down
it.
in
I
a
just have to
line
wait
in
till it's
front of you
over.
And has a similar AoE component, but a lot more of a classic voidy Shadow Priest idea to it. We also have on one of our Apex talents, the Discipline Priest has Void Shield, which replaces your Power Word Shield with a Void-themed shield. So there are places where the Void and Light are leaking into our class design.
Going back to the support roles, Neo Sorrow on the EU Spanish forums asked, can we expect anything new regarding the support role in Midnight? Will it be expanded to other classes? Is it considered that it maybe didn't work as expected for augmentation, and perhaps that just becomes a normal damage or healer?
So we're not planning on currently expanding it to other classes, but we're also not planning on changing augmentation to just fit into the existing niches. I think there's a lot of excitement around the idea of support. I think we've seen players embrace that fantasy. I think we are still iterating on evolving that specialization and getting to a place.
It's been majorly iterated on, by the way,
where it can
like
kind of
already
realize that fantasy
in this alpha
and be effective as someone who bolsters the strength of your allies without also becoming so effective that it feels required in groups and kind of limits composition diversity. I think if we're able to achieve that, hopefully when we're able to achieve that, I do think we would like to look to what other ideas might apply a different fantasy to executing that concept.
Aug must be very popular. They keep saying it, so I'd assume all the hate is from Reddit, Twitch. Yeah, so this just totally depends on what kind of game you play.
Into the story, will there be certain scenarios locked in as we level?
Okay, yeah, leveling story, whatever. Yeah, the biggest disconnect that there is possible is the disconnect between the average WoW player and the opinion of the high-level PvEer on Reddit or Twitch. Like, a prime example is Aug comes up, boo, we hate Aug. I have my reservations with Aug. If you bring up Aug in a Twitch chat, you're going to get people saying that they don't like it, right? But like the average just casual ass WoW player absolutely loves that shit. And just in general, especially through MOBAs and has gone through other games, there is just a large wanting for something like support. And I bet a lot of WoW players love it that you would never hear their opinion. I don't think Blizzard's wrong when they keep saying that, but yeah, it is kind of funny because the disconnect there is so big. People, it is admittedly hard to understand how other people experience the game outside of how you experience it, and WoW is maybe one of the games of all time where people play this game for completely different reasons. Anyways, new question.
Even Bran does, and a lot more stabbily as well.
Bran?
We also have some outdoor delves that are going to take place in outdoor spaces, and so this will just change up not only the vibe of the space, but your ability to move around because you'll be able to use your ground mounts to get around. We're also just taking a look at the mechanics that we're using in delves in Midnight. So,
like delves, one of them for me. We've started enough podcasts now with like, are delves good, and getting told by our entire community, yeah, actually I love delves, to know that I just don't get it. Delves are not for me. I will never know if they're good or bad because they aren't designed for me. The people who they are designed for clearly like them, and I'm disconnected from that, so there's no reason in me even guessing on how that content is going.
And what's stopping the World of Warcraft development team from doing a world revamp? Could we get a world revamp?
I mean, I think,
if it's ever going to happen, it's going to be after the World Soul Saga, yeah?
At once is a terrifying one, frankly. But I think, as touched on earlier, we definitely want to tell new stories in iconic locations. And in doing that, we would certainly do much more than just do a fresh coat of paint on the area. We would really reimagine it and bring it into the present day, as we have with Eversong. Our current focus is, of course, on the story that we're telling.
Yeah, I'm going to ignore this part. Yo, Dorky's in chat saying I loves delves. First of all, let's just throw a Dorkin in just for the boys. But I believe this is true, where I don't know if Dorky actually has access to Alpha today. I hope you did get that figured out. But if he doesn't, that's really sad, and you deserve it. And I feel really bad for you. Just in general, that must have been a mistake on their end, not making sure that he has this for sure. So pour a Dorkin out for Dorky, and Dork. Make sure you dork today and think of him.
And the elves' relationships
I know I will.
with one another, and that would include Quel'Drai.
Thank you. And Zoris on the EU Spanish forums asked, with the Devourer specialization, all Demon Hunter abilities will use void effects and icons, even those shared by all three specializations. Has there been any consideration of extending this aesthetic customization to other classes?
So I think philosophically and narratively, what a Void Demon Hunter represents, what a Devourer Demon Hunter represents, is one who, rather than harnessing and channeling fel energy, is channeling void energy to turn it against those who originally wielded it. And so that is going to transform a wide range of their abilities.
Yes.
On the other hand, when we look at, let's say, a Fire Mage or a Frost Mage, they're not forsaking the arcane when they become a Fire Mage. And so Blink is still an arcane spell, and Counterspell is still an arcane spell, and so forth. And so I think
I won't press it if I'm a Fire Mage. It's not in the bit.
Base of multiple areas of focus, and just because you specialize in one thing doesn't mean that transforms all of the others. That said, touching on some earlier questions, when it comes to glyph spell customizations and other things that players may want to customize the look and feel of their abilities, there's always an opportunity there.
Asked,
but I
how
do eat
is
rocks.
Blizzard progressing in the war against toxicity in terms of the entire game?
Yeah, this is something that's a huge focus
interesting.
for us, and really, there's many facets to the question and the
How
discussion.
can you even answer this?
I think when people say toxicity, there's a few different meanings, perhaps, or things that they're referring to. Some of it is just the overt, hostile, harmful,
gamers are terrible
interactions that may occur online between players.
But how can you
always
get away from
continuing
it?
to shore up our reporting tools, improve real-time monitoring, and get to a place where people who are disrupting our game world can be punished and ultimately removed from it if they continue to do that. On the other hand, though, I think sometimes when people talk about a community or a portion of the game feeling toxic, that can arise from just mismatched expectations. Like, if I am listing a group and I'm trying to run a raid, and I have done that raid 12 times, and I have been through groups that have wiped and learned the encounters, it's reasonable for me as a leader of a pug to only want players who have a certain level of experience, who have also been through those learning wipes and can succeed quickly. And so someone who is looking to learn may feel like, oh, this is very unwelcoming, this is kind of toxic, why aren't we, why am I not welcome here? And ultimately, that's an issue of aligning expectations. And I think there's a lot more that we can do on the pro-social side of things to help people find like-minded players and like-minded groups. There's nothing wrong with
there was
to
a
complete
survey
something
about
quickly
this.
and efficiently. There's also very certainly nothing wrong with wanting to learn and wanting a patient group.
The issue is the
Now, if
people
you
who
mix
haven't
those
learned the bosses want to get it into an AOTC group that's going to one-shot it.
naturally because of different goals and expectations.
And those people
I
are
think a
always
lot of
going to
what
have
we're
this
focused on
interaction.
right now is also how we can help players better connect with like-minded individuals so that they can have satisfying experiences where everyone is on the same page.
Yeah, but like, okay, let's say you sign up for a group
Thank you.
where it's like, okay, everyone here is going to learn this fight. A lot of people are just they want to skip that step, right? It would be nice if everyone wanted to do that, but the reality is a lot of people want to say, hey, have a 2% wipe, make that up, and then join a group with AOTC because you have enough eye level for Mythic Plus, and then just join, and then you get kicked or something, and then now you're the person who's saying that person is toxic, but also that other person could have been valid. But also there are shitty group leaders. There are group leaders that do the opposite of this. They don't have AOTC. They say AOTC group. They bring only people that have achieved more than them, and then they are like toxic and kicking people out. But also just people are gamers, bro.
For it to grow as we've built.
That's what they're
Midnight
gonna
and
do.
Sharing housing for the first time.
I saw an upvoted question on Reddit from a player named Backstabbeth, and this is a question I have myself.
Fairly a trustworthy fellow.
That is a lit
Will there
name.
be a list of collections and their sources for housing materials before housing goes live so that we can begin to start hunting for those items, maybe reputation, achievement requirements? I'd love to know what I already have or what I'm close to having.
Okay, so I can't... I'm just going to read a bunch of stuff that I know is different. I also might check Wowhead first. Let's go to some classes, and there's like an infinite amount of information, so I'm going to try to narrow it down to just some of the bigger ones first. So Augmentation was this expansion, right? And they had such an issue with the fact that you could buff specific people that the difference between like playing Aug at the highest level and the average level was massive, which is, in my opinion, a huge mistake. Because I think the support person is more likely the average player, the person who wants to play support. So like it's in the situation where it's either going to be way too OP for the best players in the game and then average for everyone else, or it's going to be unplayable for the people it's designed for and then unplayable at the highest level. So like they changed that. So now at least is what I could read. I didn't like fully go through their talent trees, but I read that Ebonmite now applies to all DPS specializations in your party and raid. So there is no like splitting up parties. There is just straight up, I don't know what the cap on Ebonmite is, but it's just like you play the class and it applies to everyone evenly. This will also make damage meters more readable. It'll make it easier to log. And more importantly, I think the most important thing is it lowers the delta between the great player and the average player, which is like who it should be designed for anyway. Okay, so I can basically read off like an early draft. Like I'm going to be reading some information. This is stuff that has been compiled from alpha, but I'm not going to like show any official patch notes or anything because they're like they could change before they are posted. So I'm just going to go through the main ones. So also Hunters. So you guys remember Hunters raid buff last season, or as it's been since it's been announced as Hunter's Mark, is a 5% damage increase over 80%, and then it stops doing anything. And it is a global you have to put up. How that is changing. It is no longer, and just to be clear from before, that equaled to on most raid bosses, that equaled to about a 1% damage increase. If you're fighting, just imagine Patchwork, and you're fighting it from 100% to 0%, and it's that simple. Just the most simple version of that you could possibly imagine. Hunter's Mark improves your damage by 5%, above 80%, and it ends up being about 1% of the boss's HP every single time, no matter what. Obviously, some fights are different and stuff like that. Okay. Now how it works is it is no longer 5%, it is 3%, but it works from 100 to 0. So when you put Hunter's Mark on a target, you could basically look at it as that one GCD is going to do 3% of their HP. Now in a raid, hopefully you've already come to figure this out. This is going to be 100% required on every raid boss ever. This is just extremely goated. It's probably... If there are raid buffs that are sittable, it's like the Evoker raid buff, technically, based on the situation. It's the Monk buff, based on your comp. And then a couple other scenarios, you could maybe get away with Rogue buff being out. Hunter's Mark is literally unsittable. That is extremely broken. It is among the strongest raid buffs in the game. Now... And even better, because like you can put it on like prio targets and stuff that need to die, and it's absolutely worth the global. There are a ton of mobs that spawn on raid bosses that if you want global to take away 3% of their HP is like the best global in the game. So that's good. In dungeons, it's interesting. So hunters are a class that I believe they're good in Mythic Plus right now. I don't know if they're like ultra meta, but they're very, very strong. And that's with basically an irrelevant raid buff, right? And Mythic Plus a lot of the times has been dictated by raid buffs. Almost certainly, it seems like recently you're going to want like at least a Mark of the Wild in the fort, or a fort in like every comp. And then I think Sky Fury is also one people are starting to learn is pretty insane. It doesn't mean it's going to be in the comp, but like those classes cannot be as good as possible and still get in because of those. I don't know if Hunter's Mark is going to be... that level. In fact, I highly doubt it. It's still global you have to put up. But I do think it presents a ton of value. The first thing I thought of is MDI. So the MDI is like... a lot of time saves in the MDI are like, can you one-phase this boss? Can you get this boss to this percent HP and like skip 40 seconds of an intermission because you got it here? Like Hunter's Mark is going to... if Hunter's tuned even relatively close to anything else, like, you're just simply going to do more single target with that buff than, like, a lot of stuff. And not even on bosses in dungeons for Hunters, but, like, if there's ever a prio target, if you go into a pull in Hunter's Mark, the prio target, just taking 3% off of the mob that takes the longest to die in any pack is just really fucking good. And it's pretty much how you define most Mythic Plus pulls. At the high end, what a Mythic Plus pull looks like is a bunch of mobs you're cleaving down, and then you're focusing down something with more HP. Ideally, that is what you're looking at. Or there's a mob that's really dangerous that you want to kill really fast, right? If there's not like a little mini-boss in your pull or something with a lot of HP. Hunter's Mark is just going to be very, very good for that, and would be noticeable in groups if those things are dying 3% faster. Obviously, it's dependent on tuning like most other things, but like I honestly think that change to their raid buff is very good. It makes them unsittable in raid, which was probably the goal until Dimensius, right? But yeah, I think that's a great change. Okay, another thing. I don't know if the DK raid buff can go unaddressed any longer, because like this raid, the commentary surrounding this recent raid was, you know, our DK raid buff gonna be good enough, and then you ended up playing 2 DKs on the last boss because of grip. Could they continue doing that? Yes, but there's not grips on every single fight, right? So an issue I have is like, how can you make a Hunter raid buff that good? Like, why do we keep buffing raid buffs to make them, okay, you're right, our raid buff wasn't quite strong enough, we actually do want DKs or this class in on every fight, so we're going to make your raid buff stronger with Hunters and multiple other classes in the past. But DKs are still like, we need to make sure there's grips. And while I do believe, especially to shield themselves from community pressure, I bet this whole expansion, I bet they'll make the last boss require grips on every... I feel pretty confident that it wouldn't be too hard to do that. They did it on Dimensius, right? Like the whole, oh, you could use other knockbacks. Yeah, you could use other knockbacks on Dimensius, but you just couldn't. It was too fast. I bet you could look at a dungeon journal and find required grippable mobs on every end boss going forward. But that's not the whole raid. You know? Like every other class. I still feel like that needs to be addressed. Why not? Like, why? Why go through this thing? If you're willing to buff Hunter's Mark to a point where it's that good, why not just give DKs a fucking raid-wide something, you know? I don't know. Oh yeah, this is one thing too. I forgot to mention this. So global interrupt duration has been increased. This is not in PvP at all. This is in PvE. So generally speaking across the board, interrupts are 5 seconds instead of 3. I think this is for a few reasons. I think the main one is because you have weak auras that are handling things for you. One of them is like a kick weak aura, right? You guys have all used kicked weak auras on bosses, and like if you didn't have one, it would maybe be a lot worse. I think that is the reason this is happening. I think in dungeons it'll certainly help for sure, like, but I think raid kick weak auras are going to be... This was done purely to mitigate that no longer being possible. Does it matter, since if you kick a mob, it's just never casting after the lockout is over? So, yeah, it's mostly 5 seconds. Wind shear's 4. Other stuff is becoming 7. Yeah, we're not going to read all of these because some of them are... We're going to go over the main ones. Don't a lot of raid kicks ignore lockout? No. So, like, if you've ever done Mythic, or maybe even Heroic, Nexus King... Like, if you have a mage on your side, it's, like, very noticeable. It's, like, totally different lineups because of the longer lockout. Focusing more on defensive stuff for now. Going into Midnight, we had a few pain points with Blood DKs that we're going to address. On the initial pull, Blood has incredibly long ramp-up time to get both their defensives rolling, but also their offensive power. Yeah, this has been an issue for them in Mythic Plus for years, especially. Never really an issue in Raid. The main culprit is due to how we turn Bone Shield into a damage throughput source, because of the existence of Shattering Bone and Insatiable Blade. Going into Midnight, we have removed Shattering Bone and redistributed its power into its baseline damage for more consistent throughput. On the topic of Bone Shield, we've also reduced the number of abilities that deduct from it, such as Tombstone and Bone Storm. As a tank, you have a lot of things to consider in your role, and adding to what was essentially a third resource to spend felt like it was slightly too much. Okay. Oh, here we go. The other notable change for Blood is focused on making them more reliable in high-end Mythic Plus keys. Blood historically, outside of very strong Sepulchre the First One's tier set, has been great at low to mid-level keys and in Raid, but has started to fall off in higher-end keys where their Death Strike healing can't overcome the damage they start to take. To alleviate some of this, we've made a pass on Death Strike and all of its modifiers to reduce its overall healing, but at the same time, we've redistributed that power into their baseline defensives, talents, and Bone Shield. The goal being to make their damage intake a little bit more predictable at higher keys and prevent them from falling over before they can start to get their other defensives rolling. We love that Blood has carved a niche for itself as the self-sufficient tank, and we don't want that to change. I mean, it has to change slightly, right? Like, if you're going to buff them, their innate tankiness, you're going to have to... You can't keep the same amount of healing and then also make them tankier, because then they're just unkillable gods, right? But I mean, I still think there's room to do... Like, there's room to buff their overall tankiness and to also... I mean, I doubt it's going to feel much different as far as self-sufficiency goes, but yeah, you need to take upfront damage more, or better. I think another weird issue on Blood, if you guys have ever run into this, is when you're in a low enough key where, like, the stuff doesn't do enough damage to you, where, like, your healing doesn't matter, or if you've ever had a bunch of damage happen to you that's sourced to the environment or something like that, to where it doesn't actually filter into Deathstrike, and then you're, like, basically getting globaled every single pull, and then your Deathstrike does nothing. That's super niche. I remember a couple of affixes used to actually do that. Okay, Apex Talents. Well, we should probably just go over the Apex Talents for everyone, and you guys give me a W. We'll probably rank... Actually, that might be a separate thing later, but we will read it. Essence of the Blood Queen additionally increases your mastery by 0.2% per stack. Is this in order? Oh, this is Sand Lane. I'm not even reading Apex Talents. I'm just reading something wrong. While Dancing Rune Weapon is active, when you parry, you have a chance to make your next Heart Strike free and deal 150% increased damage. That's the first point, I believe. For each Dancing Rune Weapon active, your damage is increased by up to 4% per point, and your damage taken is reduced by 2%. And then when you consume a rune, you have a chance to call a Dancing Rune Weapon to your aid for 6 seconds. Okay, so, like, this is the point, right? That's the point. This is what I'm saying with Apex Talents. And how is this exactly laid out? I could actually log on a DK, and I want to see what order it's in, just to kind of show you how I believe Apex Talents are supposed to be made. Random tankiness L. Yeah, I can kind of feel that you'd rather be in full control. I personally have been a fan of proc defensives for a while, though. Because it just changes your gameplay. You can play around it. You don't always pop things at the same time. You pop them based on what's happening. Basically, when I read these notes, I'm not going to go super hard into every single talent unless you guys want me to look at one specifically. But I think the dev notes are the best source of information here. Like, basically, them telling us this made me not need to read most of this. Except for the Apex Talents. Okay, so Blood, Apex Talents. Yeah, they had them in order. Okay, when you consume a rune, you have a chance to call... See, I feel like this is what you want. So this is... Okay, so I thought I had Apex Talents figured out. I thought it was, man, this button is broken. And then these two buttons are like, okay. And then picking these two totally depends on if you want this last thing. But this first one doesn't seem that OP. This seems like pretty mid, right? Like it's good, but it's not, like, I don't know. And I don't know exactly. I haven't played Blood DK in a while. But it's not, I don't know where it would stack up versus like another talent here, right? Like at this point, before you select this point, you could decide, do I want 4 more spec tree points? There, depending on your class tree, or your spec tree, there's actually a lot of potential power in 4 spec tree points. You guys don't need to be told that. Like, you probably know that, right? But maybe you just want this one, right? Or maybe you want these 2. But if they're going to make the last one like this strong, then you're going to see a lot more people like actually going for this, and then it is actually just 4 Apex Talents. But maybe it'll be interesting if it depends on the class, but I think it's a lot more fun if the first one's crazy. Like, okay, every class takes the first one, it's crazy. And the last one like builds on that crazy, but maybe not in all content, and maybe it's based on the scenario, so you get to just fuck with your spec tree more. At least to me, that sounds really fun. But also, like, it's weird. Like, when you talk about stuff like this, it's kind of like talking about updates to, like, PoE's skill tree. Where, like, you look at it and there's all these vast options, but, like, really, who's interacting with that? It's like there's a couple people that do, and then everyone else just, like, copies their builds from those guys. So, like, is it possible that when I'm saying, like, oh, there's some cool options, the reality is most players are actually just going to go to Wowhead, pick the best build, and those options aren't really as... They don't matter as much as just how fun the thing that sims the best is, you know? Anyway. I really like the idea of this last one, though. Okay, moving on. Frost. In Midnight, we're looking to iterate on the Ghost of Koresh Frost Death Knight rework by implementing better tuning knobs that allow for 2 prominent builds, Frostbane and Breath of Cindergosa. I've heard this before. To be able to compete in single target situations, we're also updating Obliterate to be partially dealing frost damage so that we can fine-tune the throughput difference between casting it with Killing Machine or without where we believe is needed. Okay, so minor frost changes, but I think that's fine because Frost just got like a major rework, right? I'll spare you my opinions on that. It's, you know, long story short, I miss old Frost. I think current Frost is fine. I just I feel like it lost a step to me. But all good. Okay, Unholy. So this is going to be pretty massive. Let's read their Apex talents, actually. So Apex talents for Frost are Frostworm's Fury, deals 100% increased damage to the first enemy it hits, and it grants you 15% haste for 12 seconds. This is good. If they're going to build their haste, if they're going to build their Apex talents around Frostworm's Fury, they have to make it better in single target, right? That's not something you usually want in single target. Although you do based on the hero talent you're playing, but clearly they're locking you the fuck into that. So, all right. Casting Frostworm's Fury, this the 2 points you put in after that. Actually, you know what? The way we should do this is we should read them in a different order. We should read the first one, most important. Then we should read the last one. And then based on how good the last one seems, we can look and see if the 2 points that are available before it would actually be worth it. Because I think that's your literal decision-making process when you choose this or not. All right, so Frostworm's Fury deals 100% damage. It does more damage single target, and it grants you 15% haste for 12 seconds. Okay, so it becomes like a little buff as well. Casting Frostworm's Fury forward grants 20 to 50 runic power, and recalling it grants 1 to 2 killing machine stacks. Wait, what? Wait, so I'm assuming a baseline change is... Oh, okay, so it's based on the last capstone. Got it. I literally just said we should do this thing, and then I didn't do it. Frostworm's Fury deals 100% increased damage in general, and then after the Frostworm flies away, you may cast it again to recall it at 50% effectiveness. But you get the killing machine stacks from it, and I'm assuming you get the haste again, right? That's pretty cool. I kind of fuck with that. And then to get that, you get the runic power killing machine thing. Okay, I kind of like that. I could absolutely see you just taking the first one, though, based on the content. Okay, moving on. Unholy. In Midnight, our primary goal for Unholy is to deliver fantasy and gameplay that truly embody what it means to be a master of disease and raising the dead. We found Festering Wound to be mechanically overbearing and decided to move away from it. Huge W right away. There was clearly one too many resources. Most things that involved wounds you could have removed wounds and the gameplay would have been the same. So it's like, why is it there? We're overhauling the core abilities of the spec to create a new rotation that interacts more deeply with your diseases and summoning powers. To deliver this vision, we've introduced a new type of summon called the Lesser Ghoul, placing it at the heart of its base rotation. Festering Strike now grants a buff that empowers your next couple of Scourge Strikes to summon a Lesser Ghoul, instead of applying a debuff to a single enemy that needs to be spread and tracked throughout an encounter. W. We're also updating Army to summon these new Lesser Ghouls, restoring it as Unholy's primary cooldown by reducing its cooldown to 1.5 minutes. Okay? We recognize... Class fantasy-wise, that's goated. We recognize that simply having cool ways to summon armies of the dead... Also, another thing before going on, have you guys noticed a shift to, like, how many years ago there was, like, 3-minute cooldowns that thrived and 4-minute cooldowns, and then, like, people just felt like, man, you needed 2-minute cooldowns or else your class felt like it sucked. Okay. And now, does anyone else feel the shift to 1.5 happening from 2? Like, I feel like if you have a 2-minute cooldown now, you kind of feel bad. Like, I feel like 1.5s are like the new good shit. It certainly doesn't help that the last 2 bosses of this raid in particular are like perfectly designed for 1.5 minute timers, just randomly. But I do find it interesting that it seems like we're going down again. Like, I wonder what we're going to be 5 years from now. Maybe Mythic Plus? Yeah, maybe. I mean, having like a Mythic Plus, like having a 1.5 minute big cooldown and like little babby 45-second cooldowns feels really good. Also depends on what key levels you're doing. Okay, so we recognize that simply having cool ways to summon the army doesn't necessarily create meaningful gameplay. That led us to design a new rune spending ability called Putrefy, the third rotational partner alongside Festering Strike and Scourge Strike. With Putrefy, you sacrifice your oldest summoned lesser ghouls to explode and deal shadow damage to nearby enemies. We've intentionally placed it early in the spec tree to enable further fun and meaningful interactions you can opt into. And for those wondering about targeting, don't worry, we've got you covered. Just press the button and enjoy the show as your lesser... And for those worried about targeting, don't worry, we've got you covered. Just press the button and enjoy the show as your lesser ghouls explode spectacularly. What is that? So you don't have to target where it auto targets the oldest ghoul. Yeah, I'm just saying, like, I hope the explosions are big enough so you don't have to hope your ads are in a good spot so it hits everything. Like, basically the explosion should have a massive range. Now that we've covered summoning, let's talk diseases. In Midnight, we're introducing a new single target disease called Dread Plague, which will work along... Oh, I need to play Unholy on the PTR, or Alpha, which will work alongside your AoE disease Virulent Plague. As with summoning, simply applying cool disease isn't enough, so we're redefining some core abilities and bringing runic power spenders like Death Coil and Epidemic into the mix. Scourge Strike will now cause your diseases to inflict an additional tick of their periodic damage at a percentage of their effectiveness. Okay, while your runic power spenders will extend their durations. Extending disease duration becomes important because we're also introducing a powerful disease consumption mechanic via talent. When talented into this, the explosion effect of Putrefy will consume a significant portion of your disease's remaining duration and deal that amount of damage instantly. Okay, that sounds really cool if done well, but I could definitely see some rotational issues where like it's really annoying to consume because you don't have enough duration built on your dot yet, right? To where like if you're not playing properly, it'll be really annoying and your shit is gonna, I don't know. That I'm gonna need to see play out. It sounds really cool, but I could also see that going really poorly. It sounds like a lot of ramp as well, yeah. By leveraging the concepts of lesser, but we need to see the talents though. It's possible there's talents that would like when you first enter combat, you get crazy long duration or something, you know. By leveraging the concepts of Lesser Ghoul and Putrefy, we're aiming to unify the Summoner and Master of Disease fantasies. We hope you find all of their talents are fun and engaging, especially the new Apex talent, which we believe will fully immerse you in this redefinition of Holy Death Knight. Okay, Apex talents. We'll see if I remember my bit. Army of the Dead siphons the power of the Fallen, transforming Death Coil and Epidemic into Necrotic Coil and Graveyard. Okay. What those do is Necrotic Coil unleashes a vortex of necrotic energy and bone, dealing physical damage up to 3 foes. Okay, so your Death Coil becomes a 3-target cleave spell and does shadow damage to all pierced enemies. Wait, what? Physical damage up to 3 foes and then shadow damage to all pierced enemies. So it's a piercing bone thing? So you shoot like a necrotic bone energy thing and it pierces enemies. It does big physical damage to 3, and then for everything pierced, it will do shadow damage. 20 runic power and uses half of its global cooldown. Oh, that's interesting. And Graveyard Epidemic replacement is the dead erupt beneath all foes with virulent plague, dealing shadow damage and shadow damage to enemies nearby. 20 runic power and uses half global. Okay. Okay. The last node of the tree. When you putrefy a lesser ghoul or summon one with Scourge Strike, the duration of Forbidden Knowledge is increased by 1 second. What is Forbidden Knowledge? Is that this 15-second thing? Yeah, okay. Oh, it's called Forbidden Knowledge. Got it. Okay, depending on how strong that is, that would be fine. Also, I just really want to emphasize to you guys... Actually, let's read the second point, and then I'll do it. Army of the Dead grants 40 runic power and causes your next 2 Scourge Strikes to summon a lesser ghoul. See, those points don't seem awesome. It's basically how awesome this point is. If you guys feel like something feels bad to play, has weird interactions, I think those are great examples of, like, sounding the alarms and being like, Blizzard, this sucks. If something does no damage, I wouldn't worry about that at all. Like, 0%. Like, nothing, literally nothing is going to be tuned right for months. Purely focus on the gameplay stuff in alpha and beta before you start looking at, like, this thing doesn't do enough damage. Okay. I'm going to ignore everything else. Wow, those are a lot of words that have been in the game for a long time. Oh, dude, that's kind of good. Dude, Fellblade now generates 15, Fury was 40. I feel like there is this weird thing with Fellblade where it felt like every time you pressed it, you wanted to spend more Fury before you used it because it simply just gave you too much. So if this button just makes it so you want to press Fellblade when it's available more often, that actually feels really good. I feel like there was a lot of tension there. Sigil of Flame moved to Vengeance spec only. Interesting. Several talents have changed position for sure, and then these following talents have been removed. Are any of these the passive magic reduction? I don't know these words. No? Okay. They're all sigil related shit. W. Can ignore this. Let's go to Havoc. Midnight brings targeted changes to Havoc focused on 2 key areas, reducing total amount of button count on both offensive and defensive utility abilities. Wait, really? I guess they have relatively higher offensive ability keybinds if you talent into specific things. And defensively, defensive and utility makes sense. I think they're defensive and utility. They're definitely targeting like Sigil of Flame type stuff. Especially when they have overlapping identity or functional redundancy and simplifying circumstances of conditional bonuses that warp utility usage in unintuitive ways. Many skills have changed or removed, including talents with unclear, overly niche purpose. Large multiplicative skill bonuses have been changed or removed to make room for Havoc's natural gameplay to be fun and effective. Okay, interesting in the dev notes, nothing talking about like mover and no mover build, but I think they've effectively separated those two now. Apex talents not available. Interesting. So we already talked about this earlier, but they buffed Blur, and they also made Desperate Instincts. They made that a little better, and then also Netherwalk is now a passive that applies to the beginning of your Blur. So you'll still have the ability to Netherwalk something as it's not actually an immunity. Looking at Netherwalk as an immunity is actually very confusing to people. I like to have people understand that it is just a 100% damage reduction. which is a very, very different thing from an immunity. There are certain things immunities work on that Netherwalk will not. So just pointing that out, but it is still available, but you're going to have to use your blur with it. I don't think this is too much of an issue because they're removing defensives across a lot of classes in the game, which I think is a smart decision. And Demon Hunters are extremely fucking alive, so I don't think I'm too worried about it. Okay, Essence Break has been redesigned. It slashes all enemies in front of you for chaos damage, causing Chaos Strike and Blade Dance to deal additional chaos damage to them for 4 seconds. Deals reduced damage beyond 8 targets. So they said they wanted to, like, overlapping buff windows, and Essence Break is one of those, but how are they even really functionally changing this? Because you're still going to want to get Blade Dances and Chaos Strikes into them. Isn't that the same thing? Am I missing? I haven't played this in a while. You don't have to line it up for I-Beam anymore. Oh, so it doesn't... Well, you kind of do, right? Because you want to be in meta for those things, but there's no multiplier as well. Oh, before it was an 80% increase? Yeah, but okay, who knows how much additional chaos damage... So basically you think they're just nerfing it. Like, Essence Break is basically just not as powerful of a buff window. It's flat damage. It deals additional chaos damage versus your things doing 80% more damage. Yeah, they're just nerfing it. So it's less punishing if you fuck it up because it's worse. It's probably just easier to tune, maybe. Yeah. Glaive Tempest, the final slash of Blade Dance, consumes 35 Fury when it strikes 4 more enemies, launching 2... Wait, this is a passive. Glaive Tempest is just a passive now. It'll consume extra Fury when it strikes 4 more enemies, launching 2 Demonic Glaives and Whirlwind of Energy, causing chaos damage over 3 seconds. Is this on an ICD? Or just all the time? Interesting. I wonder if that would run into resource issues in AoE, especially with like the nerf to Fellblade. Clearly, something else they're doing that we haven't looked at yet is they are clearly changing the economy of your resources for Havoc. Clearly, like if they're making Fellblade generate only 15 Fury, like clearly things are changing there big time. We'll wait and see. Let's see. Several talents have changed position. We'll ignore the rest of this. Vengeance. Let's briefly read this. We do have... Oh, no Apex talents. Okay. Vengeance's Midnight updates are primarily focused on improving the natural usability of its defensive kit. Before Midnight, it had defensive gaps that made it susceptible to difficult-to-understand deaths. Yeah, okay, I agree with that. It relied heavily on effects that were conditional or ramped up over time, and it skewed too heavily towards effects that were predictive in nature and required advanced knowledge of encounters to use effectively. At Midnight, its defensive kit has been significantly streamlined with increasing baseline defensives by making Demon Spikes easier to maintain at a high rate, and replacing complex ramp-up mechanics with simpler versions that reward core rotational gameplay, and reducing emphasis on predictive effects to make room for more potent reactive ones. Okay. I mean, just reading that, that actually sounds really good. I also just feel like the one thing that has always felt the worst on Vengeance is what it feels like to pick up a group of mobs. It's just always been janky. There's like one too many buttons in there. You don't have great things to pick up things at range. And like the whole generating aggro, living, and just leaping right in there has always just felt a little not amazing. Not in a way of like Blood Decay, but we can figure it out. Let's see if I can see any major changes for that before I move on. Oh, Fiery Brand now brands yourself and an enemy target, reducing damage you take by 40% and dealing fire damage to enemy over 12 seconds. So it's just on you. Are you able to stream the alpha? Yeah, I'm in the alpha. I'm just we're looking at patch notes right now. This is the interesting stuff. We will also play classes on alpha later. Let's move on. So Druid changes. You guys lost Renewal and Nature's Vigil. New talent, Gift of the Wild. Mark of the Wild is 100% more effective on yourself. Now that's really interesting to me. I wonder if they're going to do that maybe for some other raid buffs. What is the purpose of this? To just make the button feel better for you? I mean, it's also going to increase your tankiness slightly. Battle Shout got that too. Oh, cool. Okay, maybe it is a new focus. Mage already had it, so maybe they just want to add it to more things. Cool. Heart of the Wild has been redesigned. Perform a powerful off-roll ability depending on your currently active shapeshift form. So bear form, your max health is increased by 30% for 20 seconds. Cat form does this. Moonkin form calls... As soon as you swap, it'll just do this. Interesting. I don't understand that as much, but... Skull Bash is no longer available to Resto Druids. Well, that's interesting. Are they removing other kicks from other healers? We haven't really gotten to them yet. Is that like across the board? Healers are just losing kicks? Just Resto? That's interesting. That's really interesting. I wonder why they did that. Huh? Okay, whatever. Let's look at a few of the things. So Balanced Druids. The design of how you enter and maintain Eclipse is changing at Midnight. We like to introduce more gameplay to it. Eclipse before Midnight
is so important that you immediately drop everything to refresh it when it ends. There's no timing or strategy to it, and it can be a struggle during phases with high movement. In Midnight, Lunar Eclipse and Solar are an active ability that instantly enters Eclipse for 15 seconds, has a 30-second cooldown, and can be talented to have 2 charges. The goal is for Balance to prepare for each Eclipse and choose the perfect moment to activate it. Depending on talents and the pacing of the fight of the dungeon, you might have Eclipse up 60 to 80% of the time. You want to spend your time in Eclipse spending Astral Power and dealing damage, and your time out of Eclipse building resources or refreshing dots. Balance, that's, okay, first of all, that's so interesting. I mean, it's definitely a big change. I would imagine people are going to love it or hate it. Just depends on how it's designed. Balance's mastery is changed so Sunfire and Moonfire no longer increase damage targets take. And Waning Twilight has been removed. This allows Balance to start dealing damage faster and improves its strength in split cleave fights. Moonfire and Sunfire's damage will be tuned to keep them as strong, efficient damage dealing spells, but the damage of your other spells will be less conditional. Yeah, that's really interesting to me if what they do with Dots this expansion. Dots have like been on a comeback tour in the War Within after they have been deliberately designed to suck in PvE for many years. I wonder if they're going to continue that. Apex talent for Moonkins. First point, activating the Eclipse makes your next Wrath or Starfire instant. The first 3 Star Surges or Starfalls you cast during each Eclipse deal 20% increased damage. The final node is activating an Eclipse also launches solar or lunar bolts at nearby enemies that always crit. Entering a Solar Eclipse launches a Solar Bolt at 1 nearby enemy that deals nature damage. Entering a Lunar Eclipse does 3 Lunar Bolts that deal arcane damage to nearby enemies. Okay. And the second point is your crits during an Eclipse. Where did this go? Oh, your crits during an Eclipse. Where the fuck did that go? Oh, right here. Cause their victims to languish for an additional 20-40% of damage dealt for 6 seconds. Are you guys already a crit class? You're a haste mastery class, right? Or historically have been a haste mastery class? So Windwalker also has a point like this where it looked like their second point of their Apex talents are trying to change their stat priority or buff a certain part of their stats. Like, obviously you're getting some auto crits too, but clearly this incentivizes you to be critting a lot in general. Very interesting to see how that plays out. Moving on. Feral Druid is changing in Midnight to address some important mechanics that are based on information that is hidden to the player. Bleed snapshotting, where the damage they bleed deals increased damage for its entire duration, is now only applied by Tiger's Fury and Prowl. The icons of the empowered bleeds change to show they're strengthened. Blood Talon's been removed. Ooh, I kind of personally hate that, but I see why they're doing it. These changes also aim to reduce the complexity that could go into choosing the best builder to use in the moment. Putting more Ferals focus on maintaining bleeds and building and spending combo points, while some abilities like Brutal Slash and Adaptive Swarm have been removed. It's gained some new tricks that lean into their flavor as a deadly hunting cats. Frantic Frenzy is a multi-target upgrade to Feral Frenzy, and Blood Spattered makes them even stronger at taking down a primary target that's fighting many enemies. So better at funnel. Okay. Apex talent. When you Ferocious Bite, you have a 75% chance to flicker to a nearby enemy and deliver an unseen attack. Unseen Slash will slash a target, doing physical damage over 6 seconds. Unseen Swipe, it'll do AoE. Cool. Last node, Tiger's Fury causes you to perform an unseen attack after your next 2 combo point generating attacks. Rip and unseen attack damage is increased by 30%. Oh, okay. And then just in general. Okay, and then the second point is unseen attacks increase your damage done by 15% for 5 seconds. Additional. So this just seems like it's so interesting. And I wonder if this is intentional, that sometimes when you read these Apex talents, it's like, oh, they're going to spec into that for every piece of content for the whole expansion. And this is one of those. And some of them are like, well, the first point is cool, and the second point's whatever, and the third point's whatever, or maybe it's awesome, but it's not across the board, all of them. I just wonder what their design goal is. Does Blizzard want us to choose all 4 talents and Apex talents? Or do they want us to pick and choose? Or do they want them to be like pretty balanced to where you can or can't? Because some of them are like guaranteed and some of them are definitely not. So, now, this could be for a few reasons. I'm not saying was anyone expecting them to release Apex talents and them all to be good and balanced? And like, of course not, right? Like, they're going to get iterated on over time. Also, a lot of different people are making these, right? So, it's not made by the same person. So, I'm just interested to see how that develops. Like, what direction we go, right? Moving on. Guardian. Apex talents are not available. Guardian Druid's rage economy is very oversaturated, particularly during cooldowns and in multi-target. They've already nerfed this, like, somewhat recently, like last expansion or something, We're aiming to smooth out rage income and provide healthier outlets. Additionally, we're pulling back in areas where survivability feels contingent on having multiple layers of defensives and improving a smaller set of baseline abilities as well. Yeah, it's weird. When I've played Guardian, and I did somewhat recently, it's like Dragonflight Season 2. I played it a decent amount, went up and did some 30s. Guardian Druid to me is the most fun when you're fighting a bunch of enemies and you're getting infinite rage and you're making use of that. That to me, that spammy playstyle is like sick. But I also understand that if that exists, it's really hard to tune when you're fighting just one target and what your rage feels like. So I get it, but also I don't like it, you know? There's a heavy theme of simplification across the board. Yes, 100%. Moving to Resto. We are significantly reducing the number of buffs Resto Druids can apply to allies to make raid frames and target frames easy to parse and always show your important effects. Resto Druids Mastery will also be much more effective per healing over time effect active, as they can now only apply up to 5 to allies. We are also streamlining several cooldowns and actives we felt redundant with other tools by removing them or combining them with other abilities, and finally we're reducing the amount of maintenance buffs by making targeted changes to Life Bloom talents and offering a way to maintain F-flow automatically on your Life Bloom target. So let's look at the Apex talents right away. Life Bloom stacks every 5 seconds up to 3 times. I don't know what that means. Last one. Life Bloom bursts into a blooming frenzy when you consume Soul of the Forest, causing it to bloom 8 times in rapid succession, and 30% of Life Bloom's healing splashes to 2 eyes within 30 yards. Interesting. I don't know. I don't know what that means, but maybe W, right? That's insane. Cool. Fuck yeah. Any other anything else that is of note here? All right, Evokers. Skipping all hero talent stuff because we're too stupid. We mentioned this earlier, but Unravel is no longer, if you choose it, like if you're fighting something with a lot of shields, it's no longer an extra button you have to bind. It's just going to apply to Fire Breath. They buffed Azure Strike in general by 50%, and Leaping Flames now changes the icon of Living Flames when it's going to cleave. Okay, AUG, everyone's favorite spec. The goal of these changes is to simplify Ebb and Might targeting in raid environments. Since it now applies to all members of the raid, there is no need to micromanage who it should go on. There will still be some buff management gameplay with Prescience, which will continue to have a smart targeting option for those who do not want to swap targets between enemies and allies frequently. Overall, this should make raid gameplay much smoother and similar to dungeon gameplay. Huge. I already talked about this a little bit earlier, but this is a great change. They needed to do this. There was just too much skill difference in being able to be smart with it. So, gonna make this way easier to tune. It's gonna make damage meters no longer look completely ridiculous. But it is gonna be interesting based on how many times Ebb and Might can stack on one player. I'm assuming. Oh, here we go. Ebb and Might now splits its effect when applied to more than 2 other allies, and is no longer limited to 2 max applications. No, the other thing. How many stacks of Ebb and Might can you have? That's what I need to know. Like, before it was capped at 2, right? Is that the same? Max, it is no longer limited to 2 applications, no caps. That is interesting, for sure. Tuning is going to be very interesting on that then, because, like, it literally says no longer capped at 2. That's not really what this is saying. Like, it's a little confusing. That's not exactly what that's saying, but yeah. It says it now splits its effect when applied to more than 2 other allies and is no longer limited to 2. Well, what does it mean, splits its effect? Like, just read. No, guys, I get it. I'm getting now that it is no longer limited to 2 maximum applications on a player, but I just don't understand this. It now splits its effect when applied to more than 2 other allies. Oh, this is a Mythic Plus thing. This is just a Mythic Plus thing. Because, like, that's the only scenario where you only give it to 2 others. This is a closest Clutchmates thing. Wait, so does that mean in a raid environment, it's only going to be giving you basically the value of just buffing 2 other people? It's just split amongst everyone? Because that sounds fucking trash. Okay, let's read the Apex talents. So Breath of Eons summons a version of you from the future to assist you in battle lasting 20 seconds. Your duplicate casts Eruption, Empower spells, and Living Flame. Interesting. Anytime you extend Ebb and Might, your duplicate is also extended equal to 100% of the amount. That's the second thing. Oh, I fucking read it in the wrong order again. All good. When it's active, your Ebb and Might is 100% more effective, and Upheaval and Eruption deal 25% increased damage. Okay, so this last note is you're going to probably take it just because of this. To be honest, the 2 lines contradict each other. You're right to be confused. I mean, either way, it's going to be really fucking easy to test. right? It's going to be so easy to test this. Like, you could take your entire raid group, do some damage testing on a dummy, swap any 2 DPS for AUG, or just add AUG into that situation and just see what the overall is, see what how much they're adding, and then just compare that to another DPS spec. It's actually infinitely easier to test now. And it's all just going to come down to tuning. Okay, moving on to Dev. Devastation is one of our simpler casting specs, and we feel most rotational spells and talents already align in approachability goals, which is clearly a big emphasis with all of these changes. In Midnight, we're removing Shattering Star and Firestorm and adding some fresh talents in their stead to continue to evolve gameplay, including a talent... Man, the whole saga behind Firestorm is just so funny, just for it to end up becoming removed. But probably could have seen that coming. That allows Deep Breath to be used a second time. We're also updating Flame Shaper talents by removing Engulf and having the Keystone grant an additional charge of Fire Breath with some gameplay around managing Fire Breath's damage over time effect. Oh, maybe that'll make Empowers actually interesting? No Apex talents, which is kind of unfortunate. Alright, Prez. Prez's gameplay has always revolved around planning large healing moments and rotating a series of powerful cooldowns to deliver healing. We'd like to simplify the planning gameplay by lowering the number of cooldowns they are juggling by changing one of their largest healing combos, Life Bind. To compensate for the lost power, their bread and butter healing spells will be more effective, particularly Blossom, VE, and Dream Breath. We are also making several quality of life adjustments. Dream Breath's range is increased to 40 yards. W. Dream Flight now protects the Evoker while they are in flight. Ooh, I want to read by how much. Bro, make it an immunity and just make it the most broken class ever. And Evoker is now the option to town into a ranged version of Verdant Embrace. Oh my god, where you don't charge to the target anymore? That would be so fucking goated. The end goal is that Preservation's style of delivering healing is more intuitive and easier to pick up, while still being unique and dragon-like. Okay, so this sounds crazy. Let's look at their Apex talents, first of all. Essence abilities have a chance to infuse your next reversion with the power of the Green Dragonflight, upgrading it to Maritha's Blessing. That is Spring a Bloom of Life to your target, healing them and up to 5 other allies within 30 yards. Blooms may heal your primary target multiple times if no nearby injured allies are present. So it's just a... So it gives them the reversion hot, but also just does a instant heal? Or is it just a better reversion that is just AoE healing reversion? I don't know. Last node, Dream Breath's instant healing is increased by 125%, and Dream Breath has a 100% chance to grant this. And then reversion protects allies, reversing 4% of all damage taken and healing them instead. If you're playing a huge reversion build, that could definitely be strong. Okay, cool. They did a bunch of other stuff here. I need to see how much you're protected when you're in Dream Flight. Oh my god. Verdant Embrace healing increased by 40%. In addition, it no longer causes you to leap to your target. How many deaths do you think have happened? I mean, I'm just asking you to make up a number, but, like, it just so many. A couple of these things look cool. I'm just interested in the Dream Flight thing. Ooh, here it is. Dream Flight now absorbs damage you take while in flight up to 100% of your max HP. Dude, that is so good. That is so good for them. You could cheese the fuck out of this. A 100%, basically a 50% DR of your entire health pool, if you want to look at it like that. You could use this to, like, soak raid mechanics. If you're ever scared during a fight, you want to line up Dream Flight during a scary moment because you don't have to worry about your HP. It's extremely good. Wow. Powerful. Hunter. So we already talked about Hunter's Mark, but now Hunter's Mark is, I mean, not only a good raid buff that you want all the time, it is completely unsittably broken. It is something you will 100% need on every fight. You could never sit it for any circumstance. And there are like 3 or 4 raid buffs you could sit based on the scenario. This is not one of them. It becomes absolutely crazy. So all good. What do we have here? These are more hero talent stuff. We're going to skip all of this, even though they made massive changes to it. I don't play the class, so I'm too stupid to understand it. Okay, so we'd like Hunter's Mark to be more broadly appealing and easier to use, so we're simplifying its effect and buffing it. So why not do that to Death Knights, though? Why die on that hill? Anyways, check survival. Yeah, I've heard about survival. Let's see. BM has a fantasy of consistent, reliable, and powerful pet source attacks. We're reducing the number of conditionals, auras, and modifiers on Barb Shot. We've grown fond of Bestial Wrath shorter cooldown and are removing Barbed Wrath's dynamic cooldown reduction to give it a flat cooldown of 30 seconds when fully talented. Multi-Shot has an odd place in Beast Mastery's kit, so we're giving it an update, causing it to be replaced in the BM spec tree with a new pet sourced attack that will deal substantial damage in AoE while also activating effects like Beast Cleave and Kill Cleave. We hope this new spell will feel powerful and contribute meaningfully to your AoE. So basically you won't have to multi-shot to activate Beast Cleave. Bloodshed and Call the Wild felt like they were both competing for a similar role. As such, we've removed Call the Wild and are focusing on Bloodshed as a cooldown to get a few extra beast to attack your enemies, with the change to make Killshot a MM-only ability. Dark Rangers will now learn Black Arrow as a separate ability if they choose that hero talent tree. Interesting. Apex talents are not here, so we're going to skip everything there. MM. We're generally pleased with the state of MM after their Undermine and Ghost of Koresh updates, but there are a few bigger things we'd like to address as we move into Midnight. Most notably, the introduction of Streamline as a core mechanic for MM inflated the amount of cast time reduction they had access to, while also contributing to an extra aura track. Aim Shot is meant to be a long cast that is worth the wait. As its cast time reduces, so too must its damage, and we feel that flies in the face of what Aim Shot should be about. As such, we'll be removing Streamline and increasing Aim Shot's damage. So most classes in the game, if you were to tell them that their casts are going to get longer, but their overall damage is going to stay the same, that's going to sound like a gameplay L for sure. But have to wait and see. While Explosive Shot found a home as a guaranteed way to lock and load on Ghost of Koresh, we feel it's healthier as a whole to distance ourselves from Explosive Shot and instead focus on a more fantasy spell like Volley and Kill Shot. Spells that more often than not are competing with it in your rotational priorities. Speaking of Kill Shot, we're removing it from the Hunter class tree and letting Marksmanship fully own its execute niche it provides. And then True Shot is gaining some cooldown reduction, cast time reduction, and focus cost reduction to compensate for the removal of Streamline. Okay, so that kind of makes... Okay, so that... Until this last line, we were feeling real bad, but having a lot more uptime of True Shot, and having your casts feel really fast in your cooldown could maybe be good, but before that last line, this was sounding pretty bad. No Apex talents, so we're moving on. Survival. As we head in, so this is for all the 10 survival players out there. As we head into Midnight, we're continuing to refine and focus Survival Hunter's fantasy, giving clearer playstyle, gameplay, and visual direction. Over the course of Alpha, we'll be reintroducing one-handers into Survival's pool of available weapons, which means we'll be looking to distance Survival from its spear-only identity that it's had since Legion. Okay? That doesn't mean anything to me. We'll be doubling down on Survival's relationship with its pet and its new talents to create interdependency between the damage and the pet's damage. Additionally, we're leaning into the rugged, crafty, bomb-centric fantasy we've explored in the War Within with a new fire grenade called the Flame Fang Pitch. A new visual and fantasy identity for Fury of the Eagle called Boomstick, and a host of new wildfire bomb talents and synergies. Survival Hunter had a substantial number of abilities that were competing for your attention at any given time. Coordinated Assault and Flanking Strike have been combined. And we've also made the tough decision to redesign Mongoose Bite. We feel confident that by simplifying Mongoose Bite will allow us to carve out a more interesting design space for Survival both now and the future. And lastly, in Midnight, we'd like Survival Hunter's AoE to come from their explosives. Wildfire Bomb, Boomstick, and Flame Fang Pitch. And as such, we're removing Butchery and its associated effects. We expect Raptor Swipe to provide meaningful and exciting moments of AoE in between your chunky explosive spells. Okay. I don't know enough about those words. But Boomstick sounds cool. Apex talent. Raptor Strike has a 25% chance to trigger a Raptor Swipe, dealing physical damage up to 5 nearby enemies and granting you focus. Okay, so there's something that's going to be happening all the time. Raptor Swipes will cause your pet to lash out, dealing heavy single target damage to your main target, and granting you 3% increased haste for 10 seconds, and this can overlap. That sounds good. And then during this, during Takedown, I don't know what that means, your chance to trigger Raptor Swipe is increased by 100%, and Raptor Strike and Raptor Swipe damage increased by 20%. So Takedown is the new combination of Coordinated Assault and Flanking Strike. Yeah. Okay. That sounds, the Apex talent sounds good. Okay, skipping everything else. Mages. Alright, mages. We're going to skip your hero talents for now. Too much information. Dev notes. We're taking a pass to reduce button and aura bloat in the mage core tree. We're also consolidating defensive power to simplify the landscape of mage defensives and make them more approachable. In Midnight, barrier spells should be potent, consistent, and reliable. Mirror image and invisibility spells should now be able to be used for their utility instead of tacked on defensive benefits. We're also removing Shifting Power. Shifting Power was a uniquely powerful Fire Mage and substantially less interesting for Arcane and Frost, but it came with its own set of tuning challenges that made it difficult to balance their cooldown appropriately with its existence. Fire Mage will be getting some spec-specific adjustments to make Fire Blast more accessible to compensate for the loss of Shifting Power, and we're also reducing Shimmer's power to help make the decision between Blink and Shimmer feel more like a meaningful choice. Interesting. Players who want to maximize uptime and display mastery over an encounter and its mechanics should feel empowered to express that through Shimmer, whereas progression and more reactive mages should enjoy the increased availability of Blink. So they're making Blink available more often. That's very interesting. I don't know enough about Mage to comment about a lot of this stuff, other than from the entire game standpoint, Mages could have afforded to lose a few defensives, for sure. But I think this will, because they're not, a lot of classes didn't lose defensives. Like, I would have put Mage in the broken OP defensive category. I don't know if they're broken OP defensively with these reductions relative to everyone else. I would say they're probably in the, like, this is totally guessing, but I don't think they're going to be squishy. I think they're going to be average, because those are two important buttons for sure. Oh, my dog's drinking water. Slurp, slurp, slurp. New talent. Actually, we're not going to read any of this stuff, are we? Ooh, okay. So if you want to play Blink instead of Shimmer, you get an additional charge. It's interesting. Max, Mage lost 3 defensives, Mirror Image, Greater Invis, and Mass Barrier. They lost Mass Barrier, but they gained a way more powerful Personal Barrier. So I think it's probably equal for that one. I think the other 2 are the main ones. Removed infinite talents. Okay, let's talk about Arcane. In Midnight, our biggest goal with Arcane is simplifying the decision-making around when to Arcane Barrage by reducing the number of effects and folding the remaining ones into a new resource called Arcane Salvo. Arcane Mages can talent into different ways to generate Arcane Salvo and should expect their hero talents to provide some unique behaviors that might augment their cadence of Arcane Barrage drastically. We're also removing all effects that refund Arcane charges when you barrage, while adding some new and unique ways to regain charges throughout the tree to help reinforce the Arcane Charge climb as a core part of Arcane Mage experience. Lastly, we're introducing a new area damage spell called Arcane Pulse that will replace Arcane Explosion when learned, and it features a 40-yard range, ramping damage, mana cost, and area effect per Arcane Charge. This should feel like an intuitive and powerful option when... Oh, that's interesting. Interesting. That's really interesting. Okay. Apex talents. Touch of the Magi accumulates an additional 5% damage and has an additional charge. The last note is, when it explodes, it leaves behind a pulsing rune in its target location, dealing 25% of its damage over 6 seconds to nearby enemies. The damage is increased by 100% on your initial Touch of the Magi target. The second node, with 2 points, is Arcane Charges further increase the damage of Arcane Blast, Pulse, and Barrage by 30%. I'm still thinking about this Arcane thing. So, like, how many classes are still in the game that have to choose between Divine Storming or Templar's Verdicting? Does that make sense? Like, how many classes can literally press a button and then they're like, is this going to be an AoE version of this button or a single target version of this button? A lot of the better classes in the game have had those two things kind of like mixed together. And it's turning Arcane into like what is someone who largely AoEs by single targeting into having to choose. And I don't know if that would feel good or bad. There's good classes in the game that do both. I could see an argument where the game being you AoE by single targeting in general being like feeling bad. You know what I mean? Like that is a reason that the game, it feels terrible to have that, is because other people don't, you know? They are dumbing the game down so much. This is kind of whack. I think it depends on the class you play. I will say a lot of times people overreact to a bunch of new information. I will tell you this is a lot more than I thought there was going to be. There's way less time in between this alpha and expansion release and the last major patch than there is normally, and there's still a shitload of information. Actually, I don't even know really how they got all this done. Like, they literally have months less time going into a normal alpha. So I would just give it some time. I think the game... Have you ever seen a tooltip on like Vivify or like Renewing Mist, and there's like 50 different modifiers? I think there's definitely room in the game to simplify a little bit. I wouldn't just say like they're simplifying something and that means it's bad. Sometimes it does mean it's bad. There's classes that maybe don't need to get simplified that are, and maybe you don't like that. Like maybe I wouldn't like that, and you're right. I would definitely play with it first though, because WoW has made simpler classes that are very, very fun to play. It doesn't mean necessarily easy, and it also doesn't mean bad. Right? So I think you just give it some time. But also, you know this. I'm not foolish enough to believe that before I just said that, you haven't already made your mind up whether you're going to get really mad at it before playing it or not. And you're not going to change that after it. It does seem like when alphas first come out, people just have crazy takes about every individual thing before you actually play with it. And to be fair, a lot of you can't play with it yet, so it's understandable. Okay, Fire. With the reintroduction of Phoenix Flames and the addition of hero talents, Fire Mages have had an easier and easier time generating Hot Streak. This impacts the tuning of Pyroblast and Flame Strike and the pace of Fire's combat in extreme ways. In Midnight, we're heavily increasing the damage of Fire Mages' premier damage-dealing spells like Pyro, Flame Strike, and Meteor, while reducing their access to guaranteed crits by removing Phoenix Flames. We're also changing Kindling to be a flat cooldown reduction on Combust to reduce how punishing imperfect uptime can be. So that's interesting. There's some classes that really benefit from having this be a flat cooldown reduction, because it's like, man, if I don't get like PI, my cooldown timings are different and stuff like that, and that can be annoying. Like this other mage has PI and I don't, so we have different timings, but it also reduces the high rolly nature of how much you can make Kindling really fun. So I could see like a mage in a dungeon getting PI feeling worse about this, but either way. We're increasing the cost in the Fire talent tree to access Ignite spreading functionality to help make the Ignite spread playstyle more distinct from Fire's other builds and damage profiles, and also make it easier to tune around. We're increasing the cost. So like you're gonna have to spend more points to gain Ignite. Wow, okay, so maybe we were onto something in this previous paragraph. Maybe something they're doing is, hey, we think we went too far with everyone doing all of their AoE and single target on the talent trees, and we actually want to go back to you guys having to spend more points and more deliberately make decisions to AoE. I think there's a version of WoW that is healthier, if that's the case. But man, you're going to have to make a lot of changes, and for anyone who still has it, they're just going to be OP, and everyone else is going to feel bad. So you have to do it across the board. We actually had this conversation on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a month ago or so, where Blizzard clearly made the decision early on in Dragonflight when classes were like, this class gets to AoE for free and I have to spend all these points. They routinely made those classes able to AoE for free and didn't nerf the classes that were just doing all of their AoE in single target. It's possible they're going back on that. It certainly seems like they're making a small step back on that. And I think it's possible if they would have made the other decision to go the other way back in Dragonflight, I think they might have had a more balanced game. Because it is just weird when some classes can and some can't. And it's really hard to make them all do it. So the Apex talents are actually called Fired Up. Bro, that is goated. If I'm going to guess this isn't a Fired Up shout out, like I really doubt they named this and they were like, dude, we should name it this because of this guy. I bet they named it this and then realized that, you know, it was his name, but either way he deserves it anyway. So W, that's fucking really cool. Okay, while combustion is active, consuming Hot Streak has a 15% chance to grant you Fired Up. Now everybody can be Fired Up. Increasing your fire damage by 5% until it ends. Oh, that's high rolly as fuck, right? I guess it's only 5%, but gaining Fired Up reduces the cooldown of Fire Blast by 5 seconds, and consuming a Hot Streak has a 15% chance of granting you Fired Up. Additionally, Fired Up now extends combustion's duration by 1 second. I mean, so this just sounds like you're taking all of these. Okay, and then a bunch of other changes. Okay, bunch of words. Dude, they made so many changes. I honestly, I mean, I made this take. Clearly, this was wrong a couple weeks ago, where I said that, guys, don't get your hopes up for a lot of changes. Because normally from like, okay, this time frame, expansion launch, okay, 3 points in time on a line. The last major patch of the previous expansion, the alpha, and the release. Okay, those are the 3 points. All right. We're in the middle, but what it is right now, like, this is a normal expansion timeline. This is how much time they have for Midnight. Like, instead of it being 8 months, it looks like it's gonna, or like 9 months, it looks like it's gonna be 6. Instead of it being like 5 months from last patch to alpha, it's like 3 or 2. It's extremely expedited, which made me think that, hey, when you have, if you're a class designer and you have 2 less months to do all this shit, there's going to be a lot less of it. That does not seem to be true, and that doesn't make any sense to me. Unless you hired more people, I don't understand how they're doing the same amount of work in 2 less months, or more, maybe. Maybe if there's anything to make it understand is that Apex talents, this little line right here for 39 specs in the game, is replacing having to do like hero talents, which is obviously significantly more Like, the last 2 expansions, they had to do Dragonflight talent trees, which were, like, massive. And they had to do hero talents, which were not as massive, but still massive. And then now Apex talents and then, like, the little things they added to hero talents are, like, a little bit more. So maybe they have more time. They've been developing this since... No. The same people that are doing this, these class changes, are the same people that do class changes mid-expansion. There's no 2 teams for this. It's all the same people. Like this part, we're talking purely class changes, right? This is all we're talking about. It's very impressive how they have this, but I just don't understand with clearly shorter expansions how this is sustainable. It just seems crazy. But either way, Max, they didn't do class changes in 11.2.5. Yeah, but I don't think they did that last expansion either. Maybe they did. I'm not. By the way, I'm not necessarily not a fan of this. This is great. Maybe, you know, I'm just saying something doesn't add up. Like, if they're doing things on a shorter time frame, let's just say let's say we go through the next year timeline. Let's say the next expansion, I don't know when the next expansion's coming out, but like assumptions right now are like February, March, which is crazy fast. If that's true, and all these things are coming out on time, and we're simply getting 3 raids in expansion, the same amount of class tuning and iteration, and it's just simply they have 6 less months in a 2-year cycle, and they're doing the same quality of work, I don't understand. Like, did they just lock the fuck in? Or like, or the other reality is the quality will be worse because you are trying to do just as many things in less time, right? I don't know. AI? Maybe. I don't know enough about AI. Fun fact about me, I don't know if I'm proud of this or not. Maybe I'm stupid, but I've literally never typed something into AI on purpose. Like, I think it does it automatically when you Google things now, but I've literally never interacted with AI in any meaningful way, so I know nothing about it. But something tells me the process of, like, fine-tuning and creating a WoW spec, I don't know how AI could be involved, at least with the creative process of decision-making in any way. I don't think this is a field where that would have any interaction. But also, guess what? I don't know anything, so who knows? But hopefully if it is good, then they use it. Max, you can go to ChatGPT and ask it to create patch notes. No, I don't do that. I don't interact with clankers, on purpose at least. Okay, Frostmage is receiving a gameplay overhaul at midnight, targeted at simplifying their rotation by removing competing spell priorities and giving each spell a much clearer place in Frost rotation. At midnight, Frostmage features building and spending debuff gameplay centered around 2 reimagined mechanics: freezing and shattering. W. Frostbolt and Flurry apply stacks of freezing and ice lands, consumes them to deal significant bonus damage. Alongside this core, isn't that the same thing as, like, your icicles, kind of? But I don't know. We're also doing an overhaul of its talent tree to reduce button bloat, reinforce rotational clarity, while also removing a significant number of auras. One such change is the removal of Icy Veins. Whoa. Is the removal of Icy Veins as Frostmage's burst cooldown, now being replaced with Ray of Frost. Our vision for Frostmage at midnight involves a consistent damage profile with smaller peaks. I'm really interested in this. What are they doing with... Okay, let's read the Apex talents. Shattering an enemy has a 10% chance to summon a Hand of Frost to pursue your target. Upon reaching your target, it explodes and adds 2 targets of freezing. Cool. Ray of Frost gains 1 additional charge. And additionally, Ray of Frost summons 5 Hands of Frost over its duration and increase its hand by 25%. Each stack of freezing you shatter increase your chance to summon a Hand of Frost by 2%. Damage of may overlap. Okay. I need to find tooltips for what Ray of Frost does before anything else. New talent, Glacial Bulwark. Ice Block and Frost Barrier now have an additional charge. Choice node with Cold Snap. So you no longer have to actually Cold Snap. You can just have the second charge. It's kind of nice. Water Ellie is back. Okay, not this. Where's, like, describe Ray of Frost to me? Am I missing it? It's a channel that applies a debuff. It does damage, increase within each tick, and it ticks faster with more haste. You mouse right over it. Oh, shit. Ray of Frost been updated. Damage increasing by 11%. Its damage tick rate is increased. Each time it does damage, it applies a stack of freezing. No longer grants this baseline. But how... And just... Icy Veins is just fucking gone. What? That's so weird. Did they add... I mean, maybe in these... I'm not going to read all these talents, but hopefully they add some, like, haste increasing... Because, like, Icy Veins feels good, bro. No, wait. Celestial Conduit now overrides Zwen the White Tiger when Zwen is cast. What the fuck does that mean? All right, anyways, let's look at the changes here. So, ignoring the hero talents, class tree. Diffuse magic has been redesigned. Which basically means it's been removed, and it's not a talent you will take unless you're like doing some PvP shit or some weird interaction. But basically the only thing they're keeping from diffuse is your ability to send harmful magic effects back, which is... That is going to hit Windwalker's survivability pretty hard. Like, when Windwalker... That is definitely not amazing. But let's see. Following talents have been removed. Chi Burst, removed from Mistweaver Windwalker. Clash has been removed. And Rising Sun Kick has been removed from Brewmaster. Okay, Brewmaster. Brewmaster's kit contains a number of very niche cooldowns and abilities, as well as a number of talents that have a highly transformative impact on gameplay. In aggregate, these can cause specialization to be difficult to learn, especially in combination with developing intuition surrounding Stagger. We're aiming to broaden some of these niches while narrowing the impact of its transformational talents. In addition, some abilities have been removed in order to better concentrate both power and gameplay focus on a more manageable core. Cool. Apex talent for Brewmaster. Drinking a brew has a 20% chance to leave you with an empty barrel, which is tossed along with your next keg smash to deal physical damage to your target. Okay, drinking a brew is... it just does more damage. Okay, so overall, the reason I'm sure it gets way better here, right? I'm just saying some Apex talents are very interesting because some of them are like, oh, this first point is my goat. This is my shit. And then the other stuff is fine, or maybe it's great, whatever. But like, you can get enough power within the 1 point. Like, it is highly unlikely that this is worth a point alone, right? It's going to be about what it does to the next few things. So let's read the last one. When you are casting Fortifying Brew or Celestial Brew, you tap a fresh keg, granting yourself and 2 nearby allies a refreshing drink. Yay. And leaving you with an empty barrel. And what that means is upon taking damage, it automatically consumes this to do a heal over 8 seconds. Okay, that could be potentially really good in, like, dungeons. And then the second point is physical damage dealt in general increased by 5% per point. Okay. And then empty barrels now ricochet to strike 3 to 5 total targets, dealing 20% reduced damage on each bounce. Damn, this is so interesting. It looks like all the power in Brew's Apex talents are in the last two and not the first one, which, again, so there is no consistent design philosophy on these, which is maybe interesting, but I'm just looking to see how that progresses. Okay. Ignoring the rest of this, moving on to Mistweaver. Mistweaver Midnight updates are focused on simplifying moment-to-moment decision-making. We're also removing Jadefire Stomp's positional gameplay. Way of the Crane and Way of the Serpent is a new choice node, which is something we're trying to highlight different aspects of Mistweaver's toolkit. Our hope is that both options are relevant in situations where people want to play them. Cool. Apex. Rising Sun Kick and Vivify have a chance to activate Spirit Font, causing your next Enveloping Mist to channel Soothing Mist from you on up to 5 allies at 50% effectiveness for 8 seconds. If Spirit Font's Soothing Mists heal a full target, they will jump to another injured ally or split its healing into your remaining Soothing Mist. Interesting. Last point, Thunder Focus Tea activates Spirit Font, and Spirit Font applies Chi Cocoons at 50% effectiveness to allies targeted. Yo! If only Monk Bubble wasn't one of like the worst buttons in the game, unfortunately, for externals. But I mean, that definitely isn't bad. Okay, Rising Sun Kick damage increased by 20%, and Enveloping Mist healing increased by 20%. These bonuses are increased by 50% while Spirit Font is active. Okay, so they're definitely sending this into both of them. Is Chi Cocoon not Life Cocoon? Oh, what the fuck is Chi Cocoon? Why are there 2 cocoons? Too many cocoons, man. All right, they made a bunch of other changes, all of which I'm too stupid to understand. Something I will be doing over the next few weeks is certainly speaking with people from these classes to learn more about these changes. But I definitely want to give them time to cook first. Like, definitely less reading, more like playing. At least if I'm aware right now, I don't even know in the alpha how many, like, how far you can even level. Maybe people have leveled, like, all the way. No idea. Okay, so Windwalker. Some major changes here. Windwalker Monk's Midnight updates primarily focus on removing conditional modifiers and making sure that the base damage of your spells feel impactful. Critical strikes will be their main way their damage changes values, and otherwise each spell will remain largely consistent between in and out of cooldowns. Our goal is that this will reduce the rotational overhead and allow more focus on procs, resource management, and mastery to drive gameplay. Apex talents. While in combat, you gain Tiger Eye Brew every 8 seconds, which is not old Tiger Eye Brew. It's just a stack of something that will take effect when you press a cooldown. That's going to cause your critical strike chance to be increased by 2% during your next weapon of order, stacking up to 20 times. And then out of combat, it will quickly go up to 10, so you start every pull with like 10 stacks of this. So when you press Weapons of Order, which is replacing Storm, Earth, and Fire, which is another thing to talk about, you just have more crit. Last node, you have a chance equal to your critical strike chance to increase the damage of your current Fist of Fury by 15% each time it deals damage. And then your second node is your critical strike damage is increased by 15%. So, like, they're using Windwalker's Apex talents to just, like, totally change your stat priority. Like, this is, like, so heavily into crit, right? Like, clearly crit is going to have such a massive impact on your damage. To where, like, yes, it's giving you some crit benefit here, but also, like, clearly you're going to... 15% critical strike damage is amazing, right? So, really interesting how that plays out. Okay, new talent. Slicing Winds generates chi when cast. It now causes 2 chi to cast, but its damage is increased by 100%. Okay. There's a talent that increases the duration of Fist by 1 second, which would make sense with the Apex talent. Weapons of Order straight up replaces Storm, Earth, and Fire. As far as I know, clones are literally gone. Sorry, I'm just reading this. Baseline damage of Spinning Crane Kick increased by 80%. Same thing with a lot of other buttons because they're removing conditional modifiers. That makes sense. Whirling Dragon Punch cooldown is now 35 seconds flat and no longer scales with haste. Ooh. Wait. Dance of Chi-Ji no longer increases the damage of Spinning Crane Kick. Hold on, missed something. What did they change with that? Wait, I don't read this anywhere. Oh, its dam was increased by 80%. Okay, so they just buffed it flat and Dance of Chi-Ji is just going to be proccing free ones. So, permanent Dance of Chi-Ji. I mean, Spinning Crane Kick was kind of weak anyway, so. Oh, interesting. Mastery now displays a tracking buff after each cast that displays your previously cast spell. I feel like most veteran players won't utilize this, but I think learning Windwalker, that could be pretty nice. Strike of the Windlord is now on a choice node with Whirling Dragon Punch. Oh. So you're just never playing Whirling anymore. Ferociousness and Hardened Souls are now 2-point talents. Flurry is one no longer a choice with hit combo. And then they've removed just all of these talents. Bro, Storm, Earth, and Fire. It's gone, bro. In 2025. It's been 12 years since this class came out. 13 years? Little homies are dead. I don't like the flavor loss, but the gameplay might be nice. Oh, and AoE Crackling Lightning? Yeah. Okay, Paladin. Let's go to the class changes. No dev notes. We're going to focus on dev notes on classes we don't play as much. Holy Paladin's updates are focusing on removing various inconsequential healing sources and cutting secondary tracking buffs. We're also reducing the amount of mid-range cooldowns that they have access to, as we felt they were few too many in that space, and making sure Aura Mastery is a satisfying and impactful button press instead. Ooh! Yeah, Aura Mastery has been turbo stinky for a long time, so... Light of Dawn is also getting an update to its targeting, now being a circular radius around the Paladin rather than a frontal cone. Getting the perfect angle for Light of Dawn can sometimes be difficult. We don't like it matched with our combat approachability goals. Cool. I wonder if that'll make it less melee focused too. While in combat, apply a Beacon of the Savior to the lowest ally within 30 yards that cause your direct healing on others to also heal that ally for 30% of the amount healed. Wait, so there's just... Your Apex talent is there's just in combat, there is constantly a beacon reapplying to the lowest health target that is getting just healed for 30% of your direct healing. Beacon of the Savior transfers to the lowest ally within 30 yards if it heals a target past max HP. Oh, so it only transfers when the person who's the lowest goes topped. That's a little bit worse. But every 5 seconds or when it transfers to a new target, that person is granted a small absorb shield that also reduces damage taken by 10%. Yo, this is so fucking good in Raid. Holy fuck, that is so good. Every 5 seconds, you're giving out 10% DRs for 15 seconds to people who are low? Bro, that is fucking nuts. That in Raid, that is so sick. Holy fuck. And then the second points are you just transfer more healing. I mean, that is the most, like... I don't know if it's going to show up a lot in, like, your overall healing, but when it comes to effective healing, that is so fucking... Holy moly. And they said they made Aura Mastery better. I wonder how. Activating Aura Mastery also casts a Divine Toll at 100% effectiveness. So it's that? You just get a free toll? I mean... Free toll every 3 minutes is kind of piss. It's also an entire talent. That's pretty ass. Wait, Word of Glory and Light of Dawn Grant allies an absorb shield equal to 10% of their healing. That seems pretty good. I don't want to read a bunch of healer talents, but I want to see if they did something else to Aura Mastery, maybe? Nah. Prot! We're addressing some pain points that Prot has been experiencing at the start of combat with competing priorities and abilities clashing. Prot Paladins are subject to a significant pressure and tension between defensive abilities, holy power generation, generating and maintaining threat, and an immediate need to place Consecration. Oh my god, are they fixing Consecrate? We are also aiming to streamline by paring back on the number of layers of short duration or low impact defensive abilities in order to concentrate power in a few moving parts. No Apex talents. Are they making like Consecrate like follow you? Consecrate is now just a 5% DR. It's no longer linked to mastery. Yeah, you're right. Well, that's good. They are ruining Prot Pally by removing the 100% spell block according to the #1 Prot Pally Mythic Plus. I think it's really, really hard to say a class has been ruined by reading something and not actually playing it. Because you know what might actually be true? Is maybe right now you log on alpha and Prot Paladin is horrible. They can't even tank normal dungeons. But then, like, by the time the game comes out, they're going to obviously compensate them in other ways. And maybe they'll end up being OP or something. Like, who knows? No way to know that. All right, Rhett. The most iterated class on in multiple years also has the longest dev note today. As we head into midnight, we're taking a look at a couple of things, such as how you generate holy power, the amount of spells needed to cast for setup, hero talent balance, and the design of the third gate in the spec tree. Currently, we feel the choices in the third gate are too limiting, forcing players to pick between single target and AoE with little flexibility. To address this, we're redesigning some abilities while removing some others, with the most impactful change here happening with Execution Sentence and Final Reckoning. At midnight, we've decided to combine these two into one powerful ability. I personally really like this. That line alone, being able to get Execution Sentence and Final Reckoning in one thing is very nice. For Holy Power Generation, we're looking at into the amount of passive over time effects. A key focus here is Crusading Strikes. While it has served Ret very well in some areas, over time it's become an invisible passive holy power generator that's difficult to track and lacks meaningful interaction. Oh no, we're shifting emphasis toward Templar Strikes. Oh no. That's not good. Yeah, close the fucking Discord. I mean, dude, that's like me reading this class note. We're removing Demon Blades from Demon Hunters, and you guys are gonna press, what even is that ability called? Demonic Strike or something? Demon's Bite, bro. That shit would suck. Wait, did they do that to Demon Hunter? Hold on. Did they do that to Demon Hunter? No, now it says Demon Blades automatically overrides Demon's Bite. Okay, so what are we doing with Red here? Wait, let's before we freak out. Templar Strike's been updated. Crusader Strike loses a charge, but now strikes twice. Okay, so you're not pressing Crusader Strike. You're still pressing it, but you're getting double the value for each press. And then Templar Strike slashes an enemy for radiant damage and followed up by that does radiant damage. It always crits. I mean, personally, it just sounds really bad to me. But we'll wait to play it. Wow, Crusading Strike's gone. Very sad. All right, priest stuff, class stuff. 0 dev notes. Let's see if we can get anything from the new talents. Redesigned Void Tendrils. They gave you a Holy Nova thing that makes it a 30-second cooldown but does way more damage and healing. You're getting baseline 4% more stam. Premonition is gone from Oracle. Oh, interesting. They removed Renew. Okay, let's look at Disc. And VE exists for Shadow only, but it's baseline. Discipline. The primary aim of these changes is to consolidate and remove cooldowns from the damage healing modifiers to get base spellcast feel strong. With removing Schism, Shadow Covenant, and several supporting talents, we can focus on Mind Blast, Penance, and Shadowward Pain, dealing solid, consistent damage, so you can access chunky burst healing on a more consistent cadence. Evangelism has also been redesigned as a way to quickly apply atonements to allies and raids, providing a much snappier way to ramp up your AoE healing. The result should be smoother gameplay experience that requires a little less planning and aura tracking, but still retains depth. If they can actually accomplish this, that would be a great change. Disc is so complicated and requires so much like knowledge of fights that we don't invite. It's the only class we don't invite to splits is Disc Priest. Because like if you invited Disc Priest, there's like a 1 out of 10 chance they know how to play the game and they're going to pump, and just 9 out of 10 chance that they're going to do actually 0 healing because they don't know how the game works. If you're talking about simplicity, Disc is probably the hardest spec to understand in the game, so I bet they're going to do a lot here. Evangelism redesign was immediately powered Radiance your target at 200% effectiveness and caused powered Radiance to have no cooldown and 40% reduced mana cost for 10 seconds. But on what cooldown? So just atones on absolutely everybody. Minute and a half. Yeah. So just easier ramp. You skipped the Ret Apex talent. Oh shit. My bad. Art of War or Righteous Cause increases the damage of your next Blade of Justice by 150%. Avenging Wrath grants you Art of War or Righteous Cause. What are those? That's like when you proc. Is that your Blade of Justice proc? Is it Aura Judgment proc? It's just the free blade procs. Okay. Art of War further empowers Blade of Justice to unleash a wave of holy energy, dealing holy damage to its primary target. Just AoE. Cool. And then Avenging Wrath further increases the damage of, your finishers. So this is interesting. Like, so this node alone, this is like the best Apex talent node, and it's the second one. In your cooldowns, your finishers do 20% more damage. Like, that's crazy. Okay, so I thought I understood Apex talents. I totally don't. There has now been Apex talents where all the sauce is in the first point, all the sauce is in the last point, and now there's one where all the damage, I mean, it may not end up this way, but the second point is like the emphasis, right? Unless finishers don't do a lot of damage now. Maybe they don't. Okay. Going back to disc. Sorry, this is a lot of fucking information to go over in one day, but someone's got to do it. Bro, they expect you to take all 4. It's the patch mechanic. I don't think they do. And I also... A lot of them are not designed that way. They've also said as much. They don't expect you to take all of them. They expect you to take some of them and put the points in the spec tree based on the situation. I mean, it may end up like that, right? But and it's probably the best way forward is probably people would want to put them into Apex talents because 4 points in your spec tree sound really fucking OP. But if your Apex talents are better than that, that sounds even better, right? Okay. Wait, they removed a luminous barrier. That's nice. So people can stop taking that. We'd like atonement healing to scale down smoothly when healing a lot of allies at once rather than be increased by 125% in raid environments. This allows atonement healing to be more impactful when healing a lower number of targets, even in raid environments. Note that the amount of total healing should still be increased. So atonement now heals all targets for 60% of damage done was 28, and it's now reduced when healing more than 5 allies. Oh, wow. So obviously, maybe your ramps are going to feel the same, but like when you're just doing healing outside of ramps, I mean, your spot healing is going to be like crazy good. On my life, I'm taking uppies. What the fuck does uppies mean? Ultimate penitence. Oh, so that's a choice node barrier? Yeah, that is actually kind of interesting. I mean, I would imagine in I'm not sure about dungeons, but in raids, barrier is just unbelievably OP. But now AMZ is really OP, so if you have a lot of those, you have less need for barrier. Probably depends on the fight. Also probably a dungeon versus raid thing. Also probably a low level guild versus high level guild thing. Okay, Holy. Removing a few medium cooldown spells and tracking auras from Holy and increasing the power of existing spells. We're aiming for individual spellcasts to feel more powerful, and we're also removing some long-standing spells, Renew and Heal. Renew is now only triggered through talents. Okay, we're redesigning the Oracle tree with the intent to provide a more approachable experience by removing Premonition and replacing it with a second charge of Prayer of Mending and other bonuses to the spell. We want Holy to continue to feel like one of the most approachable healers. So these changes are all aimed at... So they're making Holy easier, which is crazy because Holy's easy. We're expecting to share a new talent that replaces Holy Word Sanctify to cause Holy Word Serenity to also heal nearby allies and cause all Holy Word interactions with Sanctify to apply to Serenity instead. We feel like this will be helpful when people are spread out and want one less ability to manage. Oh, I skipped Apex for this again? Oh, dude. I mean, guys, I'm fucking... so many words. Penance is a high chance to upgrade Power Word Shield into Void Shield, causing it to absorb additional damage and apply to 3 people. And I imagine that that's also going to give 3 atonements. Shadow damage and atonement healing increased by 10%. And Void Shield reflects 50% of damage taken to enemies, causing atonement healing. Oh, that's fucking fat. It's also an interesting way to add healer damage, but Disc is like a healer kind of famously that doesn't need that. It's other healers that need it. Alright, Holy Apex talents. Prayer of Mending healing is a chance to upgrade your next flash heal to Benediction, healing the target for 30% more and causing a Cosmic Ripple. What does that mean? And then this just increased Cosmic Ripples healing. What is that? Do you guys know what is that an already existing thing? You guys know what a Young Ripple is? Each pulse of Divine Hymn emits a Cosmic Ripple at 75% effectiveness. During Apotheosis, Flash Heal is upgraded to Benediction. Okay. Just a little rip. They're adding it to more stuff too. Yeah, I'm not even going to read it. All good. The following changes are focused on simplifying some of your cooldown launch sequence, as well as a frequent number of high-priority procs in the rotation. We're also updating the fantasy and visual of the core spells to create a consistent theme of using the power of the old gods. Yo, so new Vigies, too. Apex talent. When an effect from an idol is activated, you conjure shadowy apparitions. And then Tentacle Slam has a 100% to activate from an effect from one of your idols. What is that? Shadowy apparitions have a 30% chance to spawn as void apparitions that release a void bolt at their target and deal 50% increased damage. Okay. It's new Shadow Crash. Yeah, what the fuck is Dude, Tentacle Slam sounds like back when I didn't understand Enhanced Shaman and I never played it before. This was like 3 or 4 years ago, and I would just talk about their abilities on patch notes, and I would just make up words like Earth Crush and like Lava Slam and stuff like that, and I would just say it unironically as if they were abilities, and all of us knew that those were just what enhance abilities were, and like actual enhance mains in the chat would just get so fucking mad that that's not what their abilities were called. Dude, Tentacle Slam just sounds like something I would make up when doing that same bit to Shadow Priest. Like, it doesn't even sound like a real fucking spell. So Dispersion has now learned Natty. Oh, wait a second. Dispersion and Vampiric Embrace are now just learned while leveling and are no longer in the tree. My dude. Silence is now a 30-second cooldown, was 45, and is learned at level 26, was a talent. Okay, that's a W. Those 3 things are all a W. Plus a couple points. Actually, I don't know if it'll be a plus talent because you may end up taking something else that's also equally useless. Maybe, like, who knows what it'll mean, but it's nice to not have to think about defensives and stuff in your tree, for sure. Rogue. On to the notes again. Ignoring hero talents, although I probably shouldn't because I think if anything's going to get massive reworks, it's like literally all of the rogue hero talents. Do rogues have the worst hero talents of every class? Like quality, like lowest quality hero talents. And if not, who else is in competition? No one else, just rogues. Okay. Eldrachi Reaver. I thought Eldrachi Reaver was good. Speaking of that, by the way, I feel like I am an Eldrachi Reaver. Not like on some lore shit, but just because I'm just an absolute fucking beast. You know? Anyways, on Fatebound. Developer's note. Midnight changes to Fatebound are intended to make its benefits more reliable in different types of content. Fateful Ending's all-for-nothing benefit that ended at the end of combat has been replaced. Several Fatebound talents didn't scale against multiple targets or trigger effects like Caustic Spatter. Those have been updated. I'm not going to read any of this shit. Coin flip stuff. Class tree. Cold Blood removed. And Acrobatic Strikes has been moved to just the Outlaw talent tree. Oh, are rogues mad? Rogues got to be mad about that, I think. Wait, didn't they nerf Acrobatic Strikes to be like not even all abilities? It was just like a few? Last expansion or something? It's like completely diffy. Alright, Assassination. Assassination has seen numerous changes in Midnight to focus on its core damage over time maintenance and energy management gameplay. We've removed a number of special case ability uses from its rotation, such as applying Caustic Spatter with Mutilate, and reduced the number of abilities used in cooldown windows. We've updated its AoE gameplay to remove the need to enter stealth to apply bleeds. Interesting. To multiple targets. I really like the entering stealth to apply bleeds to multiple things. Like, I've really enjoyed that ever since BFA. But it is absolutely terrible to play in a group where your tank does not do that. Like, if you've ever played in a group once where, like, a mob is at 5% and then you just move on and chain combat instead of leaving combat, it just made you want to die for sure. So they probably have to change it. You now periodically reapply Garrote and Rupture and use the new Crimson Tempest to spread them to nearby enemies. Wait, you don't even have to reapply Garrote and Rupture? And then also on top of that, Crimson Tempest spreads them? I mean, that definitely seems like a way better version of previous thing. We've also added an element of energy management and timing. Assassination rogues are deliberate fighters, and choosing when to spend energy is important. Oh, they're going to bring pool. I feel like, dude, pooling for most classes feels bad, but on Assassination, it's always not felt bad to me. Like, I know some people always want to press a global every time, but a really well-made pooling system where you are just, by pooling a little bit in certain scenarios, it really helps you. I actually really find the skill expression of that to be really good. It's up to a point, right? Oh. Sorry, Reptar is very nervous around men, and my dad is here. We went to the Dodgers game last night. And every time Reptar remembers that my dad is here, he gets scared and barks at him. So that's what just happened. It's great. Okay. There are strong new rewards for maintaining unbroken strings of Envenoms, so you'll want to bank energy and then stretch every Envenom to its limit to keep pressure on your targets. Okay, well, that was nice lore at the end, but Okay, so you're going to want to pool because when you start envenoming, you're going to feel real bad if you just get one of them in that window. I mean, you already naturally have to pool for, like, your Shiv window and stuff, but... Apex Talents... Nothing will save your target from you. Oh, that goes hard. Envenom damage is increased by 10%, and when your Envenom bonus expires, you gain 40% increased energy generation for 5 seconds. You gain an additional 15% energy generation for each Envenom you used when Envenom's bonus was active, up to 100% total. Okay, so you do a lot of pooling just to get fat Envenoms in a row, and then whenever that falls off, you're going to be able to spam. So there's like a pool and a spam window. Not really, you don't pool. You never pool for Shiv. You only pool pre-Kingsbane. Bro, you're talking about current WoW. Clearly shit's changing. I'm saying like what it will be, not what it is now. Okay, nature and bleed damage. Third node. After striking with Kingsbane, rapidly strike that target 5 times over 1.5 seconds for physical and nature damage. Each strike applies lethal poisons on your weapons and generates a combo point. So after you strike with Kingsbane, you're just getting hella combo points instantly and doing more damn. But locking you into Kingsbane, at least if you take this Apex talent. Shiv will no longer increase damage, so you won't even be using it. Oh, I mean, yeah, then what are we even talking about? Obviously, I haven't read that yet, though. I mean, I like that. I personally like the idea of it. Now, with a lot of things, sometimes their ideas don't necessarily line up with like how it actually plays. But I actually, this does sound like kind of cool. Okay, a bunch of things that I'm not going to read, most likely. Except I'm interested in, they said you periodically reapply Garrote and Rupture. Does that mean it's going to be happening on your own? Like you don't even have to repress it? Which kind of, or is it, let me just read Crimson Tempest because that's been part of it. Deals damage to all enemies within 10 yards, reduced beyond 5 targets, copies the longest Garrote and Rip. Does that mean Rupture? That's funny that it's a typo because it is kind of hilarious that Rupture and Garrote for Assassination are like literally the exact same thing as Rip and Rig for Feral Druid. So that is a, what do they call that? A Freudian slip, kinda. Okay. It means you'll have to repress Rupture every so often, then respread the buff with Crimson Tempest. Yeah, I mean, that's probably better than the going out of combat shit, though. Like, here's the way I'd put it. I think I would prefer the old version if it was a perfect world and every single time you went into a poll, you were out of combat and everyone in your group played around that. Like, that version is more fun than this. But that version almost never happened, and this will make it so it's purely on you. Would be how I would look at that, I think. Look at the Inspiring thing. That's the pooling talent. Inspiring Strike. Applying Envenom while Envenom is already active increases all damage you deal by 5% and increases the poison application chance. And that just keeps stacking. This is interesting. It's going to either make haste pretty bad, and you're going to just pool to get all your damage, and then your just damage is amplified by your crit, mastery, and verse and stuff. Or it's going to make haste extremely insane, and it's going to make doing that way easier, and you can do it more often, and you have to pool less. It's Garrote, not Garrote. Wait. How do you say Garrote?
Garrote.
Fuck! Bro, this has happened to me twice today. Why am I saying everything bad style? I'm not changing the way I say it. Everyone else is wrong, not me. Outlaw Before Midnight can be a very demanding spec to play. The factors involved when to cast Roll the Bones can be complex, performance relied on a lot of stuff, it's also really fast, and its shortened global cooldown can result in a high rate of actions per minute. At Midnight, we intend Outlaw to be a very approachable rogue spec. See, I don't know if I like this. So, they could be making a great change here. I think it is okay to simplify the game in general, and that maybe be a good thing. But I don't think you have to simplify literally every spec. Like, I think something that's really cool about WoW is there are extremely approachable specs, and maybe the game as a whole could be more approachable, but I don't think there should still be specs that exist with high levels of mastery and are still intended to be hard to play and not simple, personally. So I don't really like seeing that. Like, this stuff was really high XP per minute, it was really fast, shortened global cooldown. That's unique. There's not a lot of classes like that, and you don't have to play this. Right? And now we intend it to be an approachable rogue spec, which is what they said for BM Hunter earlier. The exact same text. So it's like, we don't need to make everything BM Hunter, as my only bit. Roll the Bones now grants a single bonus of varying power. Outlaw no longer uses Vanish offensively, and Adrenaline Rush is a consistent duration that provides a bigger boost while active. Outlaw gameplay is based around building and spending combo points and managing your energy with several random bonuses that can trigger and change up your rotation. Crackshot has been removed, but talents enabled between the eyes to reset its own cooldown and stack multiple times. We hope you enjoyed taking it. Okay, lower text. Apex talents. Between the eyes, a 45% chance to apply 2 stacks of its bonus to your damage dealt. And when you dispatch, you have a 12% chance per combo point to hide a bullet up your sleeve. When you've hidden 6 bullets, your next between the eyes consumes them and is free, deals damage as if you spent 6 combo points, and immediately resets its own cooldown. Yo, that seems sick. When you spend 5 or more combo points on dispatch, immediately strike your target with an underhanded scoundrel strike for physical damage. Does that have 2 points? Most of these have 2 points. And then what do they do with the thing they moved into the spec tree here? Acrobatic Strikes is now an outlaw talent, and auto attacks increase auto attack damage and movement speed by 1% for 3 seconds, stack up to 10%. They made crazy changes to outlaw. What good does a bullet up your sleeve do? Am I throwing them? Bro, you're holding that shit to put into your gun, I guess. Okay, no Apex talents for sub, but they had a multitude of overlapping damage increases from cooldowns that needed to be precisely aligned in unintuitive ways to produce good damage results. It overly punished players for getting it wrong, and even when getting it right, could make Subtlety's gameplay feel more rigid than it should have been for a spec. Subtlety's Midnight updates are focused on giving cooldowns and effects a clear purpose, on reducing the number of conditional effects. This is what it says on every class. Alright, Shaman time. How do you skip sub like that? I mean, there's no Apex talents, and I don't really understand the rest of it, so W. Okay, ignoring the hero talent stuff. Earth Ellie now lasts 30 seconds, was 1 minute, and has a 3-minute cooldown, was 5. That's kind of nice defensively. At least if it still has that other thing. They might have removed that, though. Reduced baseline chain heal cast time. Things moved around. Frost Shock is gone. Stone Bulwark Totem is gone. Resetting your totems is gone. Okay. Ellie. Our goals with Ellie for Midnight are reduce the number... Yeah. Flame Shock can now be replaced with an upgraded ability that applies 6 Flame Shocks and cause your next Lava Burst to hit all the Flame Shock targets. Ooh. Similar to previous designs for Primwave. With this version, we're looking to allow a quick transition from Flame Shock application to AoE Lava Bursting for simplicity and keeping up with the demands of AoE against short-lived creatures. This is an optional talent path, so for players who want to focus on Lightning and Maelstrom Spenders, that's still intended to be a viable playstyle. No Apex talents. And what are they removing? Removing Storm Ellie, Primwave, but like kind of baking in Primwave to some other shit. Liquid Magma Totem, Ice Fury, some shit. Okay, enhance. We're aiming to reduce the amount of information to track for playing enhance Shaman optimally. Yeah, that's probably still a thing. They've done a little bit there, but it's definitely still a decent amount. To achieve this goal, we're looking to reduce the number of buttons, auras, and spell highlights to track while heavily keeping in mind how it feels to play this. In addition to the core enhancement changes, we're aiming to reduce the overhead of understanding 2 different hero talent rotations. The hero talents have affected the rotation a bit more than we'd like, and we're making adjustments to fit them more into Enhance's core rotation more naturally while preserving what's unique to them. Each Maelstrom spent has a 2% chance to cause your next Crash Lightning to ignore its cooldown. The weapon enhancement effect of Crash Lightning may now overlap. Okay. Crash Lightning electrocutes the area struck, dealing 50% of its damage 2 additional times over 2 seconds. And its weapon enhancement effect now increases auto attack speed by 15%. And then the 2-point node is that you just do more damage. That sounds kind of bad, but who knows. New talent, Overcharge. Critical strike... no, we're not going to read all of this, but... I just want to see... Let's see what they removed first. They removed Alpha Wolf, Crashing Storms, Ellie Blast, Hailstorm, Ice Strike, Legacy of the Frost Witch, Primwave, Tempest Strikes, and Witch Doctor's Ancestry. Okay, so just like the entire bottom of the tree, and Ice Strike's gone. Holy moly, I'm going to have to log in and just like make a build real quick. I'm assuming with these changes too, the reason this sounds bad is we're thinking of current enhance, but like clearly they're changing Crash Lightning. We'll go play it. Okay, Resto. Shamans have a bunch of strong utility and rotational spells, so an important goal for us is to balance the number of possible active abilities. We're also looking to remove talents that add auras that are constantly active or temporarily modify other spells. A significant change here is the removal of Healing Surge and Tidal Waves. We're reducing the base cast time of Healing Wave and Chain Heal to simplify gameplay and adding options for mana management through talents. We recognize there is a loss of a decision point when doing single target healing, and we'll be monitoring feedback closely when it comes to Healing Surge being removed, but our goal is to keep spell decision making simple because healing has already become dynamic gameplay with target choice. We're also updating Healing Rain to last 18 seconds when not playing Totemic. While we want the instant long-duration Healing Rain to be the hallmark of Totemic, it makes the alternative feel less awesome when it has to be cast every 10 seconds. Another goal for us was to reduce the number of available group cooldowns healers have access to. So Ascendance and Healing Tide Totem are now a choice node against each other. We want healers to feel powerful, but having too many powerful cooldowns often leads to needing to deal spiky damage to challenge them. We've talked about this a bunch, but as long as they're also doing this to other healers, this is good. Are there too many healer cooldowns in the game? Yes. Could every healer lose one and be fine? Probably yes. They're probably not all the same in that regard, though. Some have more than others. Plus, Healing Tide Totem has just been kind of ass for a really long time. Like, Ascendance is really, really good. I assume you'll probably play that, but who knows? New expansion, but I'm really glad that they're aware of this. Apex talents aren't there. APT's gone. Did they bake it in? They didn't. Yo, that's crazy. Okay. Cloudburst is gone. That's a ton of the fun of that spec. Earthen Wall's gone. Healing Surge. Tidal Wave. Wow, man. So much shit. They pruned half your buttons. Yeah, let's see. See how it plays. That's crazy. All right, Warlock. I mean, what are these curses? You can talent into what? Better versions of curses? Instead of all 3 curses, now you pick one. Okay, Affliction. Oh my god, the amount of words. Unstable Affliction and Seed of Corruption are returning as Affliction's main soul shard spenders. Malefic Rapture solved a lot of issues that plagued Affliction toward the end of BFA. However, it placed a lot of emphasis on rotational setup and increased its overall complexity. It often procs the question, when should I spend my soul shards? And it's difficult to answer given how many factors impact its throughput. Additionally, each new dot added to Affliction's arsenal subsequently diluted the throughput of Rapture, which made it feel less impactful with multiple targets. Overall, we want less conditionals to affect its throughput, increase consistency, and add clarity. Okay, now to address the elephant in the room, Vile Taint. What a word. While many specializations have tools to solve dot application, dots do not define the moment-to-moment gameplay and shouldn't as that is the realm of Affliction. Agony would lose a lot of texture and throughput. Its application played out in a similar way to Corruption. In addition, there's less emphasis on having every target afflicted with Agony with the removal of Malefic Rapture as your spender. Throughput is no longer dependent on having Agony active. Since it cannot maintain Agony on its own, we've removed it and replaced it with shared Agony, an effect similar to Balanced Druid's Twin Moons. This gives us a controlled, tunable method of scaling Agony application in multi-target situations that maintains the core dot-centric gameplay of Affliction. Lastly, we're changing the cooldowns to Affliction to better suit gameplay changes. First, we're extending the cooldown of Summon Dark Glare to 2 minutes, was 1 minute, to reduce the frequency in which players would want to pool soul shards. That's very massive, potentially bad, but it also depends on a bunch of other things. Secondly, we're introducing a new 1-minute cooldown Dark Harvest. This is an experimental channeled spell that mirrors Malefic Rapture in some ways, but instead of scaling per dot, it only needs a single dot to maximize its throughput. Let us know what you think about this new cooldown and other changes. Okay. It wasn't 1 minute ever. It's just 2 now. They just made that up. Okay, cool. Max, doesn't this feel like the WoD era pruning that everyone hated? Will we see a similar backlash? Maybe, but you also have a lot of people asking for it. Like, it is a very common talking point that the game has too many buttons, right? So it's not surprising they went in that direction. I would just definitely wait to play it until you feel like it's bad. Because hearing 5 buttons are gone could be bad. It also could be fine. Also, the WoD pruning probably had to happen. Like, in hindsight, right? I don't think that was, in the history of WoW, a bad thing. It was something that people were mad about, but people also hate change, right? You could also argue the game is bloated, but I don't know. It depends on how seriously you play the game as well. No, I'm not waiting to bitch about it. I'm bitching right now. All right. I can only respect that. Okay, let's see. Apex talent. Haunt now deals shadow damage to its host and 3 enemies within 10 yards that are suffering from your corruption. Increases the initial damage of this. Cool. And damage dealt by Haunt has a chance to summon a Desperate Soul that casts Fellclaw and Carrion Swarm for 12 seconds before being banished. Deals damage. Cool. Then I don't know enough about Affliction to read any of this shit, but as with most things, there's just a million talents that are gone. This is basically consolidating quality of life features. It's hardly a prune. It probably depends on the class you're playing, but there are absolutely classes that are getting pruned, right? Like, I mean, we just went over Shaman, right? Like, Shaman is losing Cloudburst and is losing Ancestral Protection Totem. That's not like quality of life changes. Those are like, you have too many buttons. That's a prune. But prune doesn't equal bad. The only time in this game there's been huge prunes before, that was probably a W. So, who knows? But it's certainly not something to get excited about. Like, oh, I have access to new things. In general, that could be too many in the grand scheme of things, but initially your feedback is like, oh, that's good. New thing. Removing always feels worse than adding, right? But it may not mean it's not the like worst thing to do, right? So I was just eating some food. But yeah, someone in chat brought up a good point that if add-ons are going to be like, obviously, if the game has been made to challenge you over long periods of time, and that challenge might still persist, but you have less add-ons to help you deal with it, by making your class have less to pay attention to, but you relatively have more things to pay attention to you and the things around you, that reducing the class complexity might still make your coggy load, like in a perfect world, right? Which it probably won't be. Around the same as what it was, it's just shifted into a different area. And then you also don't have to rely on out-of-game tools. But getting that balance right is going to be almost impossible. But that is, it's probably not a surprise they're doing that at the same time as other stuff. And at the same time, though, like, it's maybe not the same level of fun. Like, at least for me, it's hard for me to parse how much fun I'm having because of the things I'm fighting versus just playing my class. They are, like, two different things, and you kind of do them at the same time. But, like, really, when I'm really loving WoW, it's basically because I fucking love playing my class. It's like why Mythic Plus is fun. It's why every dungeon set is, like, doomed to all hell. And then the actual dungeon set comes out and the season comes out and you're playing your class and every dungeon set ends up being pretty good because it turns out what you're really Mythic Plusing for is just playing your fucking character. And if you love playing your character, Mythic Plus is going to be just fine. And if you don't, it maybe Mythic Plus sucks, right? But like Mythic Plus is just purely defined on like how much you love playing your class. So if they're making your class less fun but making the stuff around you more you have to pay attention to, maybe that just makes the game less fun because playing your class is what was fun all along. Is something they could find out from this. And that is not to say that simplifying your class means it will be less fun. They have simplified classes in the past and the classes become better and more fun to play. Like that is also true. Is that going to happen across the board? Certainly not. Are some classes going to be less fun to play because they're more simple? Absolutely, that is true. You just don't actually know until you get in and start playing it. How significantly better is class tuning going to be going forward from these changes? I don't know. Because that all depends on perception. Like, for example, if you look at Raid, class tuning has been really fucking good for, like, a long time. Like, if you look at statistics on, like, single-target bosses, and you keep in mind that the lower classes do not have the best players playing them, because the best players play the best classes, the single-target tuning is, like, fucking crazy good. Across all bosses, usually tuning is crazy good. But why I say tuning is perception is because of the way Mythic Plus is created, is if you are not one of like the 5 to 8 best specs in the game, you have now crossed below the threshold of you no longer get instantly invited to groups, and it now takes you 30 minutes in Group Finder to get accepted to a key, and that makes the game suck. So if you're a Mythic Pluser, your opinion on class balance is, am I in that small group of classes? And if I'm not, I feel like shit, and if I am, I feel great, right? So that I don't think will be any better. As long as Mythic Plus is around in its current form, there's no solo queue stuff, there's no like increased way of like the group finder being better. They are doing some changes, I think, in the next expansion for that. But like just based on that survey they put out, or I assume they're going to do them, that's going to remain roughly the same. It just depends on what, but like is it going to be easier to tune classes? Are there going to be easier tuning knobs with less things happening? Absolutely. I think especially with healing and tanking actually. But as far as like Mythic Plus tuning is concerned, I think because of the construct of Mythic Plus, it is always going to be exactly the same. There's like literally no way to make it better. There's like been a couple seasons where the tuning is better to where there's more things that are meta, but it's dependent on so many things that aren't even to do with damage either. It's like raid buffs, defensives, like your class could be not wanted in keys, and it has nothing to do with your spec. It has to do with another spec of your class being better relatively in its role. So therefore, people don't want if you're a Druid DPS and Resto Druid's meta, even if your class is toe-to-toe with everything else that's being brought, it doesn't matter because you already have that buff, so it's bad. You know? It's just Mythic Plus is just totally cooked with the way it's designed for you to ever, like, to have good class balance. It's impossible. So min-maxing to get the most reward out of a spec is now gone. See, now that would be a extreme statement. So for some specs, that might be closer to true. Like when I'm reading Resto Shaman right now, what separates a goated Resto Shaman and a noob that space has gotten smaller, for sure. But would I say that's true of most classes? I don't think so. Isn't that necessarily true if they just make the skill caps of classes lower? Okay, yes, but... Okay. Right now, what's true with almost every class in the game, if you're doing Mythic Plus or Raid, is that if you are better than someone else on your class, you're going to beat them every single time. That's been true, basically, for most of WoW's existence, actually. Because in Classic, that's probably not super true right now when you're playing it in Classic, but back when it was live, that was the case because skills were so different. But you can lower the skill cap of everything in the game and still have that statement be true. Like, whether it's by how much, who knows. But, like, you can still... I feel like it is important that if you play a class to its absolute best, you will just be better than other people at it. I still think that will absolutely be true, even if the skill cap has been lowered. But I'm also not sure across the board how much the skill cap has been lowered. It seems like it has, because the amount of things they've removed. But I might start playing things on PTR and feel like... Or on Alpha, and feel like there's just as much mastery, right? I won't know until I do it. Even with some classes being simple as hell, there's still a massive gap between players. Yeah, I mean, this game's insanely hard. Like, I mean, we are in the business of trying to recruit the best PvE players that exist. And you can still not find a perfect player. It doesn't exist. It's like the levels are so high. Like, what the game is requiring you to do to live and stuff at the highest level, week 1 Mythic progression, in High Mythic Plus, whatever, just with absolute consistency is extremely hard. So there's a lot of room to grow there. And even if they make the game simpler, you still... Because there isn't anyone that's at that absolute level, you could just be better at the other things, right? I would also, yeah, I think an argument you could make is I don't know how much they are doing this in some cases, but I'm not sure how much the skill ceiling has lowered versus the skill floor being raised. The gap between the two is becoming smaller, but I'm not sure it's the ceiling coming way down. I think it might be the ceiling coming a little down and the floor going way up, which at the highest level still gives you separation and still feels good to play potentially. Max, how do us citizens cope with this many changes? You just blow up. Go give your most well-educated take on Wowhead. That's where people with well-educated takes go. Prop High Discord is in full Doomer. These places are all Doomer. Yeah, but like, okay. We've kind of gone through this in history. Like, WoD had, like, the great pruning happen. And I think when people think of that in their minds, they remember it, and they remember it being a negative thing. Because the reaction at the time, if you were around, was very negative. It was this is a bad thing, we're losing all these things. I feel pretty confident that the WoD pruning was very good for the health of the game, now looking at it in hindsight. But you wouldn't think that unless you like actually went back and, well, I mean, really thought about it. Maybe you haven't thought about it in a long time. But people were really mad because they were losing things. And this feels exactly like that, where this may end up being a good thing, but it just feels like you're losing things, so naturally it feels bad. I don't think those feelings aren't valid either. It could totally make sense. And you could be right, too. But back then, they weren't right. So... Max, we lost some incredibly niche and important abilities on classes that the community asked for, which were finally brought back, so we have history to prove that the great pruning was not good. Man, I have on the tip of my tongue, I just have a banger analogy about places like Taco Bell and McDonald's, like bringing things back for a limited time and then taking them away and then bringing them back, and why that makes sense. But I don't quite have it. Also, on that note, the McRib is fucking terrible, by the way. Shit's so bad, but... I think I've eaten enough food to at least take another break and start talking about the game again. Oh yeah, demonology. So I've heard, I'm going to skip all this. I've heard they made demo insanely simple. Apex talents. Call Dreadstalker summons one additional greater Dreadstalker at 200% effectiveness that fades after 30 seconds. Only one can be summoned at a time, and its duration is refreshed when resummoned. Okay, so you can't press that more than once every 30 seconds. Increase the damage of your Felguard's Legion Strike and Fellstorm by that. And then a Soul Keeper stalks you, collecting demonic cores as you use them, and it has an increased chance to unleash a powerful attack at your target whenever it collects a demonic core. Okay, it does damage. Yeah, I've heard they just made demo, like, you don't have to worry about, like, your pet rotation and stuff. Who knows? I don't play Warlock. I'm sure it's great, but all these things have been removed, so... Destro. Overall, we're fairly happy with the current state of Destro. That said, we did want to make some changes to streamline its gameplay and reduce the amount of conditional power. We want Chaos Bolt and Rain of Fire to feel impactful, and we need to trim some other stuff to make that happen. Apex talents. Casting Incinerate is a chance to evoke an Echo of the Dark Titan's power. Echo of Sargeras will hurl an Ember torn from this guy at a target, dealing Shadow Flame damage and dealing... Okay. Memory of the Titans will increase your crit and haste. And casting Chaos Bolt or Rain of Fire evokes an Echo of the Dark Titan's power at 50% and 60% effectiveness, respectively. And if no target is found, a random target suffering from your immolate will be selected. Cool. What did they... So it sounds like Destro is largely the same, but it may still changed a bunch of shit. They removed Rolling Havoc. So did they change regular Havoc? Havoc is 20 seconds on a 30-second CD. It's nuts. Holy shit. All right, Warrior time. Demolish now makes Warrior immune to movement forces during the channel. All right, if they do another Dimensius, we're staying still and bonking. A few other things here. Hero talent related. Cool. All right. Since Dragonflight, all 3 Warrior specs have been overloaded with cooldowns, most of which come from the class tree. The Warrior class tree is also focused far more on damage dealing and survival than offering interesting choices and new utility Warriors can bring to groups. Ooh? Ooh? We're taking a fresh look at the Warrior class tree and looking to make the tree more interesting with more unique effects that Warriors can bring to content. Oh! That sounds promising! The duration of your shouts is increased. Okay. Thinking nice for Rally. New talent, Blood and Thunder. Thunderclap affects 5 nearby targets with Rend, but that means what it used to do, right, is if you rended something, Thunderclap would spread it, but now it just removes that interaction. Okay, auto attack damage increased. Your shout abilities have additional effects. Battle Shout grants you 3% additional attack power. Okay, so same thing with the Mage, Arcane Intellect, and Mark of the Wild now, where your Battle Shout just also gives you a bigger buff. A personal buff. Rallying Cry will grant 5% leech and 30% movement speed to allies. Okay, that's kind of interesting. So 30% movement speed is just completely whatever. You would never use that to satisfy a movement speed requirement like you would with Roar or Windrush, or even like that's like Zephyr movement speed. It's really useless, and it's also going to be 12 seconds. However, 5% leech is that is potentially really strong based on the scenario. How many scenarios are going to exist where you want to have increased HP and you really want leech? I mean, if you want leech, that means you need a lot of healing, which means you would want the HP. But how many times is leech actually going to even benefit you? Like, single target, 5% leech is kind of whatever, but if you're cleaving or AoEing, it's going to be, like, really good. Potentially so good that it might, like, lag the game, actually. I'm thinking of, like, AoEing in, like, Anduin Intermission when you're fighting the Lich King guy. And, like, there's all those ads out. If you proc, like, 5% leech, something tells me that just, like, I don't know, you just, like, break the game. Is leech affected by enemy damage amps? I believe it is, yeah. Wait, new talent Last Stand. Is Last Stand a fucking passive now? It's class tree. Well, it says when your health is brought below 20%, you marshal your inner strength to increase your max health by 30 for 15 seconds and instantly heal yourself for that amount. Is that only for, like, DPS Warrior, but Prot Warrior will still get regular Last Stand? It's a passive general for all 3. Dude, I feel like Prot Warrior losing actual Last Stand doesn't feel amazing, but I mean, for DPS Warrior, this is great. That's, like, really good. You didn't even spec Last Stand? Damn. Wait, new Arms and Fury talent. Run at a high speed toward a target location near your allies, taking 30% of all damage dealt to allies within 3 yards for 8 seconds or until you take at least 20% of your max health in damage from this effect. What? It's like better intervene, I guess, but it's going to instantly go away. Like, you take 20% of your max health, that's going to be fucking instant. It's the way that this is written, this is a completely useless talent. I guess you could use like a big external on the warrior so that 20% extra HP had more value. It's a 20% max health shield for your allies. I mean, that's just so weak. I mean, maybe on like a really short cooldown. What's the cooldown on this? Yeah, I don't think this is good. At least for DPS. I mean, it's only for DPS. It would have to be like even like 30-second cooldown. This is just bad. Like, you're saying it's like mass barrier, bro. Mass barrier like was a barrier for almost your entire HP pool. Not 20% HP, but 30 seconds be up more often. Anti one shot tech and Mythic Plus, maybe. Yeah, maybe I'm underrating it. It's also not 20% HP. You're right. You are going to reduce damage until you take 20%. So it is 20% of your HP split amongst 3 people. So on average, it's like, you know, it's terrible. It's like 6.5%, something like that, 6.3% technically. It says all targets within 3 yards. Yeah, but it's like Hand of Sack, where when it takes, it's for 8 seconds or until you take at least 20% of your max health. But bro, if you're taking 30% of their damage for anything relevant, that's going to go away instantly. It says at least. I don't think I'm looking at it the wrong way, because you could obviously take more than 20%. So at least just means once it crosses the 20% threshold. It could be one big hit. Yeah, and then you just die. You take 30% of all damage, and it lasts at least until you take X damage. Yeah, I'm just saying that's bad. It's just not good. They need to buff it. But it's cool, though. I like it. New shit for groups. Hone reflexes. Oh, they've changed some other stuff here. Berserker Shout, radius is increased. Intimidating Shout, cooldown is reduced by 15. And Piercing Howl's radius is increased. If damage is coming in slower. Nah, I just don't think it's good. But hopefully it will end up being good. Intimidating Shout, target cap removed from all versions. That's very, very nice for dungeons. Much of arms damage is from aligning damage increase and high damage cooldowns together, and the loss of damage from not doing this correctly can be very high. We're keeping focus on Colossus Smash, and we're adding some new talents to customize it, but we've removed some of its modifiers to the next use of an ability, such as Martial Prowess. Finally, we're improving Sweeping Strikes to keep arms solidly in place as a champion of 2-target cleave. That's really important. I feel like they've lost that. No Apex talents, but they're making a 2-target cleave better. That's good. Sweeping Strikes has been redesigned. Your next 12 damaging single target abilities within 30 seconds hit one additional target within 8 yards for 75% damage on a 30-second cooldown. Whoo! God damn. And then improved Sweeping Strikes has been redesigned. Sweeping Strikes affects 6 additional damaging single target abilities, so you can take an extra point and make it 18. God damn. And those are only your next 12 damaging single target abilities. So if you're weaving in any cleave stuff anyway, those aren't taking these charges, right? Also check Colossus Smash. Colossus Smash now affects all enemies within 10 yards and functions as Warbreaker did. Ooh, very goated. That seems really good. At midnight, our goal is to refine Fury's core builder spinner gameplay and resolve some pain points. We've added powerful execute talents to make conditions about when to use sudden death less complex for players who enjoy it, and we've added some bonuses to make critical strike a more appealing stats for Fury Warriors and added some new AoE talent options. We're also reinforcing Bloodthirst to make it a reliably satisfying button to press and create a rhythm to Fury's rotation. Lastly, we're simplifying some of the rotation conditions involving Enrage and major cooldowns like Bladestorm. So no Apex talents again. Anything? Wait, whoa. When you would sustain fatal damage, you fly into an unstoppable rage, becoming unkillable and immune to movement impairing effects for 8 seconds as you seek revenge on your would-be killer. If you kill your killer in this time, you emerge triumphant from your rage with at least 20% of your max health intact. If you are not victorious, you die, and this effect can only occur once every 5 minutes. Okay. I mean, so there's one thing I can think of right away. This is going to be sick on raid bosses, because this basically just means on any boss ever when you normally have your Paladin like stay alive at the very end by bubbling, and they have to hold bubble for that. I feel like warriors now are just going to try to fucking kill the boss at the end, right? And you kind of by default are extending Enrage, which is pretty cool, and also potentially really strong. Like, depending on fight timings, that could actually make Warrior really fucking strong. Be interesting to see what you have to give up for this, though, in your tree, because this is asking you to take something... Like, if this is near the end of your spec tree, for example, are you going to take this instead of a damage node? Like, no fucking way. So maybe you just will never have this. Someone said it's a cap... Okay, yeah, it's a capstone. Like, you're not taking this. Like, in PvP, it's probably takeable as a capstone, but that's cool, though. I definitely like the flavor. I do fuck with dying, being killed, or killing. There's only 2 options. Prot Warriors. Is this the last one, bro? And then there's some other changes and stuff, but okay. We're pleased that the major spec work that Prot received has been successful, so we're comfortable letting things settle a bit more. At midnight, we're positioning Thunderclap to be the primary AoE threat tool and focusing Revenge towards dealing additional damage with excess rage. Okay. Again, no Apex talents for Warriors at all. New talent, I can do this all day. 6% of damage you block to your active ignore pain or the next ignore pain you activate. That sounds pretty good. I mean, you block infinite damage, so that's probably worth a decent amount of healing. So now you just have Avatar on your spec tree. Except Last Stand, Anger Management, and Rend move to the class tree. Fully collecting a class's set appearance now unlocks all lower difficulty variants. For example, collecting all the mythic appearances will automatically unlock the heroic, normal, and raid finder variants, while unlocking heroic would only unlock normal and raid finder. I feel like that's huge for Mog Lords, because it took them a ton of time to actually go back and get the other ones. That's got to be big. Oh, wait. While we feel the Catalyst has been largely successful in expanding access to powerful seasonal set bonuses, it has also generated friction in its dual use as the primary source of class set appearances for many players. This friction has been further exacerbated by loot roll restrictions in situations such as participating in LFR raiding. In conjunction with this change, you want to better preserve the value and identity. So this is twofold change. This is not only just making it so you have to spend less time farming stuff, but people who are unironically rolling for loot in lower difficulties are no longer rolling against people who need it for transmog. Interesting. And then let's check this. Acquiring a class set 4-piece bonus now unlocks a character-specific feat of strength that will enable catalyst charges to drop from raid bosses, Mythic Plus, Bountiful Delves, and rated PvP for the remainder of the season. Okay, the decision to spend catalyst charges can be difficult early in a season as players anticipate looting more powerful armor in the same slot in the near future. For example, catalyzing a veteran or champion helm might feel like a mistake, knowing that a hero helm could be around the corner. If a player decides to spend that charge and then receives that heroic helm, it may have to sit in their bags for up to 2 weeks before it can effectively be equipped. This change should empower players to chase their seasonal class set bonuses early on without reservation, with the knowledge that additional catalyst charges will likely be farmable for them just several weeks into the season. In addition, armor pieces with desirable secondary stats and non-set slots, such as belts and boots, should feel like more viable options earlier in the season as well. Yeah, seems like a good change. PvP can completely ignore. Professions, not sure. Oh, dude, something I forgot about earlier, Valor Stones are gone, bro. We learned that earlier, but it wasn't written down, so I forgot it. But okay, user interface. New user interface called Journeys. A new tab called Journeys has been added to the adventure guide. This tab will help players track their renown, delves, prey, and Great Vault reward progress. Only previous expansion renown and Midnight Delves will be available in Public Alpha 1. Artwork is still in progress. And the Delves tab has been removed from the Group Finder panel. Players can now configure the Delve companion through the Delve section of the Journeys. Okay. A new timeline of spellcasts will appear when engaging in bosses. This timeline can be moved and adjusted. We're going to test this actually today. Updated nameplates. Okay. We've already seen some of that. We're going to play with that more than look at it. Okay, so I do have an issue with the personal resource display that I'll tell you. Catch-up experience. If a player hasn't logged in for a period of time, their returning characters may be given the option to go straight to the catch-up experience. Okay, cool. And that's it. Oh my god, we're done. All right. I'll log on alpha for a little bit. So something they said is they said a boss would be available for testing. I don't know if that's tomorrow or today, but I would want to go see the, like, dungeon timeline stuff.